is the Patriots Catch-22 podcast with Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
I'm Evan Lazar. Evan Lazar. Hello, everybody. Nailed it. Joined as always by Alex Barth. That's a fit. That's a match. No risk it, no biscuit.
22.
Here is Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
I posted this on Twitter, like red on red,
22.
red jerseys on a red field. Like, come on, Eastern Washington. Like,
I love the red field.
No, that's
I love the red field.
Okay, but you can't wear red jerseys on a red.
You can.
You
It's an
can't see
advantage.
them.
You ever seen the thing with Boise State where the guy lies down on the
That's
field
cheating.
on the kick return?
That should be.
Nah, it's a home field advantage. It's
Back
a
in the
college
day,
thing. I don't want to
if
see
the-
colored fields in the NFL. I
If
really
this
don't.
organization did that back in the
But-
day, there would be a Supreme Court hearing about
The
it.
Packers can do it. The Jets can do it. They're just not smart enough to.
Hello, everybody. Welcome in Patriots Catch-22. Evan Lazar, Alex Barth. Barth, the tentpole events of the offseason are over. The free agency,
Yes.
the draft, all in the rearview mirror. So it's a good time to take a step back, go a little bird's eye view, roster reset style. So we'll do that today, resetting the offense, and then next week we'll do the defense. I do have rookie minicamp coming up this weekend. Hopefully we'll get out there and be able to see some of those practices as well, maybe one of those practices at least. So we'll have that for you too, a little preview for you as well. And I want to open the show with some news about Julian Edelman going into the Patriots Hall of Fame, and George Pickens got traded, which I'm sure people are going to want to talk about.
Don't forget we have rookie numbers too.
We have rookie numbers, and today we'll definitely open up the phone lines and the emails to you guys. I know we didn't do that last week because there was a lot to get to, but this week we'll definitely have you guys on the phones and everything as well. So that's the agenda for today's show. Fred, Paul, and Matt Smith got me all fired up before the show today, Alex.
Oh, boy, about
just
what?
for you, about the Celtics, of course. What else? Nothing really gets me fired up these days besides defending the green.
You can't have a logical conversation about that game. You really can't.
It wasn't even just about that game. This is not a Celtics show, and I know some people get mad when we talk about other sports, but I'm trying not to let that spill over into this show too much because they were.
Well,
they were
don't
coming
get too riled up. You know that you can get riled up talking to me, so be careful.
Nice. They are coming at my boy Jason Tatum. I will go to the grave defending Jason Tatum if I have to. So we were getting into it a little bit, but there might be a football adjacent conversation that's a philosophical conversation.
Yeah, there is.
Between you and I with the Celtics. So maybe we'll get into that in the second hour and make it football related. We're not, we won't get too much into the Celtics, but support the home team. Join New England's staff here at Gillette Stadium. Seasonal positions available in food and beverage, parking, and security. Visit www.thecraftgroup.com/careers and apply today. All right, we're off and running. Do you want to start with news? And obviously the biggest news of the week, it's a slower week in terms of personnel moves and all that kind of stuff. Like I mentioned, it's all kind of in the rear view. But the big news this week, Julian Edelman going into the Patriots Hall of Fame, officially announced on Monday, edging out Adam Vinatieri and Logan Mankins as the finalists. So there's a couple of points, to talk about with this. Obviously, there's giving Edelman his flowers, and I want to say, I said when the finalists came out that I would vouch for Vinatieri. I did vouch for Vinatieri.
Yeah.
But with that being said, there's no arguments about Edelman going in either. Like, it's not like like we're saying that Edelman shouldn't be
It's
in.
tough. They both deserve to be first ballot, and only one could get in at once.
Right, exactly. And so no one is arguing whatsoever that Edelman should not be in the Patriots Hall of Fame. He is a slam dunk, 100% Patriots Hall of Famer. But I think what complicated things, just to kind of peel back the curtain a little bit, was last year was technically Adam Vinatieri's first year of eligibility, but they put Tom Brady in and bypassed the voting process, which is totally understandable. But last year would have been Vinatieri's first year. Then this year would have been Edelman's first year. And then next year would be Gronk's first year. And they all probably would have gone in first ballot. Vinatieri, Edelman, Gronk. Brady pushed Vinatieri and Edelman into the same class, so to speak. And so now you created a little bit of a logjam here. So it's disappointing that it's going to take Vinatieri some time, because I don't think he's going to get it next year either, because I think Gronk will be first ballot just like Edelman. So it might take Vinatieri some time. But other than that, just what were your thoughts on Edelman getting named first ballot? And, we can reminisce a little bit about his career.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely 100% deserves it. Again, some of these fans might be younger. They know the stories, they've seen the highlights, but they don't have that connection with Vinatieri.
Yeah.
They certainly do with Edelman, because he's not just a player that was a good player. And I mean, he obviously was. He's top 3, top 5 in just about every major receiving category for the Patriots for in terms of franchise records. You talk about a big game player. You talk about a guy that stepped up in big games, in big moments, time and time again. If we're going to reminisce, Evan, and we're going to talk about Edelman's biggest moments, we're going to talk about the hit he took from Cam Chancellor in Super Bowl 49 and the yards after the catch there. Him catching the big touchdown. I think it was later on that drive, right? Or the next drive, whatever it was.
Definitely later in the game.
We're going to We're going to talk about the fingertip catch in Super Bowl 51. Right. We're going to talk about the double pass against the Ravens. I've been talking about this now for 30, 45 seconds. I just listed 4 or 5 things. And I didn't even get to his Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah.
That's how unbelievable this guy was in the big moments.
Yeah.
So that is to me what puts him over the top. Not just the production. The production is obviously unbelievable, and the production, the dependability, the reliability, the consistency. But there have been a lot of reliable, consistent receivers that have come through here. What makes Julian Edelman different is his ability to come up in the big moment. And some people will look at this and say, well, should Wes Welker get in? He had better numbers across the board than Edelman did. But if you start talking about putting Wes Welker in the Patriots Hall of Fame, or the NFL Hall of Fame for that matter, what's the first thing a lot of people are going to bring up?
The drop.
Right. Edelman, time and time again in the big moment, and you just don't. I feel like it was underrated throughout his career. It wasn't talked about enough throughout his career. Not just that he was a good player, but his ability to constantly show up when Brady needed him and when the team needed him. The regular season, even the 24-point comeback against Denver, that was like one of his first big breakout games. Just a guy that had a knack for the moment. And that should be, to me, the defining element of Julian Edelman's career. Look, some of that's Brady, too. Obviously, Brady was the one throwing him the ball. But it is like that level of clutchness. Like, he belongs in that conversation, the most clutch athletes we've seen in this city.
Yeah, I think that, the time that we got to overlap with Brady and Edelman, 18 and 2019, I remember when Edelman was coming back from the suspension and Tom Brady talking about getting Edelman back. And I don't know if it was a suspension or I think the suspension and the injury happened at the same time, right? The ACL injury.
Well, he tore his ACL
and then he
missed that year, and then he got suspended coming back.
Right. So
because he missed the beginning of 18.
So it must have been 2018 then, yeah.
Yeah.
And Brady just talked a lot about being able to read his body language, read his movements off the line of scrimmage, and just this comfort level that he had with how early in the route Edelman was able to get open. Like, not just the fact that he always, was in the right places, but just how, for a quarterback, when you drop back to pass, to have that comfort or that feeling, knowing that this receiver can separate quickly, is just such a feeling of just like calmness for a QB, that you have a guy like that. Obviously, Edelman was not a down the field, vertical explosive type of guy. It was the quickness and the play strength and the toughness and the reliability that made him stand out. But I remember Brady talking about just having this feel and this innate ability with Edelman to understand, okay, if he puts his weight on his foot like this, he's probably going to break this way, or if his hips are moving that way, he's probably setting this up to go in the other direction. And so many of the routes that he ran had options on them, and and multiple branches of him breaking in whatever way he wanted to break and all that kind of stuff. So that from a football standpoint. But you mentioned it a second ago about the connection with the fan base. And I think above all else, that is probably why Julian Edelman is a first ballot Patriots Hall of Famer, and why he got in before Vinatieri, is that he has really ingrained himself in Foxborough. The Foxborough forever thing is maybe a little corny, but it is what he really exemplified that. Played for one team. The
Didn't
Patriots.
go to Tampa.
Didn't go to Tampa when he had the opportunity to. Was a 7th-round pick, converted quarterback. We all know the story, underdog story. Didn't really flash right away. Wasn't an instant contributor. Had to kind of earn his role and play his way onto the offense.
I mean, remember, he almost left because it took him 4 or 5 years to really get involved, and he was the Giants, right? He met with him for agency, and he thought he was going to leave.
Yeah, and you look at also they sign Amendola when Welker leaves, and a lot of people thought Amendola was going to be the next guy, and Edelman really was the one that was the 1A to that, with Amendola as well. So all of those types of things are the competitiveness and just the underdog story. We love that around here. We just do, right? And Brady's in his own category, but he's similarly is an underdog story as a 6th-round pick, and Edelman is 7th-round pick. These guys were not. This was not Calvin Johnson and Peyton Manning coming out of college, right? Where they're top 5 picks in the draft, and everybody thought they were going to be stars. So Edelman earned this through and through. He worked his butt off to get this to get to the red jacket status. So you have to tip your cap to that. And obviously, post career, he's been very committed to the Patriots and very much a defender of the wall now on his 17 different podcasts and everything like that. So he's ingrained himself in Patriot culture. And one of the things we talked a little bit about yesterday on Unfiltered, and I feel like we're almost a little bit uniquely in a spot for this, because both you and I were old enough for the first part of the dynasty to remember it and to have lived it, but we weren't. I was 8 when they won in 2001, so we weren't old enough to really understand the game of football like we do now, or like we did as we got older. But we still witnessed it. And I think for a lot of people that were born a little bit later than us, there really isn't a connection to Adam Vinatieri, and I can understand that.
He's the kicker with the white beard on the Colts.
He most likely spent... There's some people that probably only knew Adam Vinatieri truly as a Colt.
Right.
That are rooting for the team today. And when you put him up against a guy like Edelman and you put him in a fan vote on social media... This is going to happen, because I know there are people that are unhappy that it didn't go in chronological order, and Vinatieri didn't get in before. And like I said at the top, I would have voted in Vinatieri first and done it in chronological order. But the reality is that it's going to be Edelman this year, as we know. It's most likely going to be Gronk next year in 26, and then maybe Vinatieri gets over the hump in 27 when the deck's clear a little bit for him in 27. But there's a lot of Patriots fans that are younger. There's a lot of Patriots fans that became Patriots fans during the dynasty and not necessarily at the beginning of the dynasty in 2001 when we remember all the kicks. But not everybody remembers the Snow Bowl or Super Bowl 36 or whatever the case may be. But I think with Edelman, it's the two things you mentioned. You talked about the clutchness. That's obviously there. Maybe it's 3 things. The clutchness, his connection to Brady, I think matters.
Yes.
Their friendship, their relationship on and off the field, I think matters. And obviously, the fact that he's really embraced and ingrained himself in Boston sports culture is a big part of it as well. So props to him, kudos to him. We still don't know when that ceremony is going to be. Him and Bill Parcells will go in on the same day. So we'll have those announcements, I'm sure, here shortly or at some point on the horizon. But we don't know exactly when that's going to be. But it will be the two of them, and it will be a cool day. It always is a fun day. It's and
it's really 2 days, because you get the one over the summer where he gets inducted, and then usually they'll do, it's usually a home opener, right? They'll honor him at halftime, so that's a fun one too. With Mike Vrabel, that ended up being like a franchise-changing moment.
Yeah,
that speech he gave at halftime of that game, because I don't think the Titans loved it.
No,
but it worked out. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get into the roster reset, and then we'll.
Did you want to do the news stuff, or did you want to do that later?
Well, I'm sure the the people will ask us about those things. But if you want to quickly, we can go quickly on George Pickens. George Pickens is one of those guys that kind of irritates me. I'm not going to lie. Not him personally, but like the George Pickens thing, because this goes back to the draft, right? This goes back to 2022. And maybe in 2022, you could make the case that they could have taken on a little bit more risk with the character, with the player back then, when it was still Bill Belichick and you're coming off Mac Jones's rookie season. And you went to the playoffs. You had some promising things going in your direction. But the context of George Pickens, when we compare him, to Tyquan Thornton especially, always gets thrown out the door that there were some major character red flags about George Pickens coming out of the draft, and also major injury red flags too. He really only had one season at Georgia where he was productive, and he blew his knee out in the second year that he was supposed to be a full-time player at Georgia. So he had injuries, he had character concerns. And this time around, he's been a very productive player in the NFL. He's a good football player. But now it's similarly to the conversation that we had with Luther Burden, where the Patriots just don't feel like they're in a position, but based off their actions, I think they agree with us, that they are not in a position to take on these types of character risks yet. Like, is George Pickens really the guy that you want to take on in year one of this thing with Mike Vrabel? The answer seems to be no across the board, including in the draft.
Yeah, I agree with you. My other thing on Pickens, I actually will kind of nitpick as a player a little bit. Like, a big part of the Josh McDaniels offense is consistency. He's not a consistent player. He disappears. So he had 900 yards last year, exactly. 55% of his production came in just 5 games. If you go back the year before, he had 5 100-yard games. He also had 9 games where he had less than 50 yards. So he's all over the map in terms of production. And that's just not what this offense is. This offense is about consistency. The highs are there, but I don't think the consistency is there for him to be a true number one. He's best next to a guy like a DK Metcalf, where he was in Pittsburgh, or next to CeeDee Lamb, which he will be in Dallas. The other thing, to the character point, you're exactly right, especially when he's a talented guy. Let's not mince words about that. He's a talented guy.
Yeah.
What's the track record of Mike Tomlin moving on from talented wide receivers? Do they usually work out when they leave Pittsburgh? No.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, there's the character thing, and then there's what this is. Because the Steelers have a history of this. They will bring in guys that have character issues and make them work up to a point. Once it doesn't work anymore, they move on, and generally they move on at the right time. Antonio Brown's obviously like the poster child for this, but we've seen it with other players as well.
Oh, yeah, Deontay Johnson.
Probably
the biggest one.
Chase Claypool. That was more just a build than anything else. But if Mike Tomlin and the Steelers are moving on from a receiver, that's usually a red flag, because they know wide receiver talent, I would argue, better than maybe any team in the league.
Yeah.
I have no problem with them passing on Jordan. I honestly didn't have a ton of problem in the draft at the time because of his injuries. Now, it doesn't mean I would have taken Tyquan Thornton there, but there were other picks to be made. But I don't have a problem on them passing on George Pickens. I really don't.
Yeah, and I get that maybe some of the calculations that go on with player evaluation is knowing when a guy is truly... There's a difference between a guy being a diva and a guy being a cancer, right? And knowing the difference between those, I think, is part of vetting players in the personnel process. But there's always a give and take of, is this guy really worth the risk in terms of the talent? And I think the world of Luther Burden, he probably is one of my favorite receivers, if not my favorite out of this past draft. Travis Hunter notwithstanding, but was Luther Burden so good that you just had to do it? I'll give you an example, with a guy that was in the league, kind of like George Pickens. At the time when they made the move for Randy Moss, Like, that's
Right.
Randy Moss, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're talking about one of the greatest wide receivers of all time, if not the greatest wide receiver of all time. That one is, at year 6 or 7 of this thing with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, and the culture is completely established and the foundation of the program is completely established. Like, that's when you go ahead and you take those swings, and Bill took a million of them. Like, Randy Moss is probably the most successful. Corey Dillon is up there. Rodney Harrison had his own issues for some people coming to New England, but for all of those, there's also Albert Hainsworth and Antonio Brown. Yeah, right, exactly. So there's good and bad there, but that at that point of your build is when you start to take on those guys. And George Pickens is not Randy Moss.
No.
So I understand that if George Pickens goes on to have a really good year in Dallas, or if Luther Burden has a really good year with Caleb Williams in Chicago, we're going to get a lot of calls and emails and people upset that the Patriots didn't take on these players. But the process to me it makes sense. Like, I'm on board with what they're trying to establish here. In 2 years, if this is still running like a well-oiled machine and they want to take on some character risk in the draft or in free agency or a trade, go for it. But right now, I understand why they want to get the good guys in the building first, and the leaders and the captain material type players, and then we'll see what happens.
I will say, if we're going to look ahead to revisionist history, I would much rather them take the risk with Luther Burden than with George Pickens.
Agreed.
Like, that was the one, if you want to talk about where they missed. Right, and we'll see how it plays out with Kyle Williams and all that. But I'm saying it now so that if we end up talking about it in 3 months, people can't say that it's revisionist history. I don't mind him passing on Pickens. I'm saying that now. And he could put up 1,000 yards this year. It's with Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb on the other side. It's a different situation than it is here.
Yeah.
The Burden one is what, if someone's going to burn them, it's passing on Luther Burden to me. It's not because I don't think Travion Henderson's a really good player. I do. But positional value, wide receiver, running back, all that.
It'll be interesting to see if Travion Henderson has a really productive year and Luther Burden has a really productive year. Are we just saying, oh, well, all's well that ends well, or are we saying that we still,
the tiebreaker will be Kyle Williams, because people will say, well, they could have gotten a running back later, and
right.
Fair
enough. All right. So I think really that's there's not much else going on other than that breaking this morning in terms of news around the NFL. So let's get into roster reset on offense, and I have some facilitation style questions for us here.
Okay.
And, I'll just go through every position on offense, and I'll read out the names of the players that are currently on the 90-man roster for the Patriots. So we'll start with quarterback. Not a ton to unpack here, obviously, with Drake May and Joshua Dobbs holding down 1-2 on the depth chart. And I don't think there's any chance that Ben Woolridge, the reported undrafted free agent signing, and I should mention that all the undrafted rookies we talk about, it's reportedly right now. We still haven't officially announced those. Should be shortly, maybe in the next couple of days. But
I would think we have practice.
Yeah.
On Friday, rookie practice.
Yeah,
so I would think by Friday that'll be made official.
They should be out soon.
And that's also why the UDFAs didn't get numbers, if anybody's wondering.
Yeah. So Drake May, Joshua Dobbs, Ben Woolridge right now is the quarterback depth chart. There's really two questions to me here, or one question and then one just sort of theory of mine that I've been kicking around, or thought of mine. The need to carry 3 quarterbacks. I don't think, when I talk about carry 3, I mean on the 53-man roster at the end of camp. I don't see any need to carry 3. Last year they carried 3 because Joe Milton had developmental upside, so they held on to him. But when it comes to Ben Woolridge, I don't think we're going to get into that territory. Plus, nowadays with the extra emergency quarterback, you can call up the emergency quarterback from the practice squad. So if you want to do that,
I think you can only do it three times,
yeah,
right?
Well, that's true for any player. But yeah, you could do it 3 times.
Right. So
in my opinion, you're not carrying Ben Woolridge on the 53 just to make him the emergency quarterback 17 straight times. I don't think that he's going to be good enough to warrant that. Like, if he comes out in camp and has a great camp, then sure, I guess. But I don't think he's good enough to warrant that. I think they're keeping 2 quarterbacks, and that seems to be like the plan all along, hence the Joe Milton trade, all these different things that they've done. So my guess is that we'll get to the end of August, early September, whenever roster cut down day is, and it will be May and Dobbs, and then maybe a guy like Woolridge stashed, on the practice squad. But I don't see any need to carry
I don't
3.
think the emergency third quarterback can come from the practice squad. When did they change that?
Like last year or the year before.
So it was voted and approved last year, and I'm reading it, and the NFLPA vetoed the change.
I'm pretty sure that's a change. Maybe I'm wrong, but
NFL
at the same time, you're
reading-
going to carry a third quarterback just to make him the emergency
I
quarterback.
think so. I think a lot of teams are doing that. It might not be Ben Woolridge. They might find somebody else. I think they're going to have a third quarterback. He might not be on the team
don't.
right now, but I think they're going to have a third quarterback.
I just don't see the point of that. Like, you're wasting a roster spot on a quarterback that's never going to play. Like
I think teams value that security blanket.
The dominoes that you have to get the quarterback on the field is great. Like, both guys have to be like hurt and ruled out of the game for it even to happen. And like, so you're just going to take up a roster spot all year long. Like, it made sense when Milton was taking up a roster spot because, like I just said, he had developmental upside. I don't see what the upside is from carrying like another journeyman. No offense to Joshua Dobbs or a guy like Woolridge, like an undrafted rookie. I mean, maybe you end up being right. I don't really see that. Along with the roster crunch, the other thing that I wanted to talk about with quarterbacks is just what's going on right now in the building with Drake May learning Josh McDaniels' offense. And there's been a lot of talk about the verbiage and the verbiage change, that he's speaking a different language than he did his rookie year talking about Drake. But
yeah,
I'm not as worried about the verbiage thing. It's May. Like, it's good. This is the time of year to ask questions and to learn language and do all that kind of stuff. So he's asked about it at the podium. Some people, some people interpreted his answers as he was kind of going through it a little bit with the verbiage change, or is kind of going through the process. I don't necessarily worry too much about that. The one thing that I do have like a small C concern worry about is they're going back to putting everything on the quarterback pre-snap. So last year, the center took responsibility. The center made all the line calls, all those types of things at the line of scrimmage, taking that out of the quarterback's hands. So, really quickly, like what that means is, the mic is what sets the protection or sets the run blocking scheme. That's what's pointing everybody in the direction that the offense wants it to go in. The mic can change. A lot of people think the mic is just the middle linebacker on every single play. It's not. Like, if you're sliding or if you're, running off tackle or whatever the case may be, like, your mic point might be different from play to play. It will be different from play to play. So Drake May said that it's like he's holding the pin last, right before they snap the ball. He's gonna hold it last. They like it this way, it sounds like, based off of his answers. They like it this way because they feel like the quarterback has the best view back there, right? He can stand up
in the shotgun.
In the shotgun, he can see blitzes. He can see things coming off the edge that maybe the center can't necessarily see. So I get the advantages in that respect. I do worry about putting that on a second-year quarterback and expecting Drake May to get to the line of scrimmage and be Tom Brady or Peyton Manning and calling out blitzes and sniffing out pressure schemes and moving mic points and, Rita, Linda, like all this different types of stuff that they do to slide protections and like all that minutia. I hope that it's not too much. They don't put too much on his plate early. I know Josh McDaniels has talked about in the past, easing young quarterbacks into that, easing Mac Jones into it his rookie year, even communicating in the headset. You have until I think it's 15 seconds, right, to talk to the quarterback through the headset. So that they have that ability. It's May. I'm not like ready to freak out about it or anything like that. Like I said, small C concern. But just hearing him talk about all the different things, and we had Josh Dobbs in here yesterday, and he was talking about it. There's a lot on the quarterback. We've heard that in the past. I mean, what are your thoughts on them going back to putting everything on the quarterback?
I don't have a problem with it because I think Drake's up for it, and this is something people were worried about at the time. Oh, well, you look at all Brady had to do, and how is May going to do that? Do you really think they're going to, at least to start, give him the same volume that they gave Brady? Like, it's going to be a modified version, right? So I don't think he's going to have – ideally, you build it up to that in time, but I'm not super worried about it. Yeah, it's different. It's a change. Anytime there's a change, it's something that you have to note and pay attention to. But I don't know. He's got a good football IQ. He's got a good understanding. He doesn't have to learn it as he's coming into the league. He has that base under him of what he learned last year. So, yeah, I'm not. Like you said, lowercase c concern.
Yeah, I talked to his coaches last year when they drafted May at North Carolina, and one of the things that they said was about how he underwent a coordinator change from his sophomore year to his junior year. Phil Longo was his offensive coordinator his sophomore year. He's now at Wisconsin. Longo had that was his best year with Phil Longo. Now, it's worth mentioning he also had Josh Downs on that UNC offense, and he had a little bit more NFL talent around him at North Carolina in 22 versus in 23.
Yeah.
So that might have contributed as well. Downs was his go-to receiver, obviously gets drafted by the Colts.
Was that a healthy Bryson Nesbitt?
Yeah, I mean, they just had a better team. They had a better team. So there's that element of it, but there was a scheme change. There was a philosophical change in terms of a lot of the different things they had him doing, and running the line of scrimmage, footwork, all that kind of stuff. A lot of people felt like that contributed to his footwork regression, was going from one style of footwork to another. So it's something to monitor. I think even concern is even too strong. It's just something to monitor with all of this going on with Drake May, because everybody just wants Drake May to make the year 2 leap and take that next step, and we're all hoping for that. But there's a lot going on at the same time. There's a lot of new coaching, new verbiage, new style of play, new personnel around him. So it's going to be interesting to see how all of this kind of transpires. So those are the two things I have with quarterbacks. I'd be interested to see which one of us is right about the third quarterback. I just don't see the point of it, but maybe they end up carrying 3. Maybe it's like you said, it's somebody gets cut and it's like a veteran, and
it doesn't have to be somebody on the roster right now, to be clear.
All right, let's go to running backs. So running backs is interesting. Ramondre Stevenson, Antonio Gibson, obviously the rookie Travion Henderson, Terrell Jennings still kicking around, Lan Larison, everybody's favorite UDFA running back, who's suddenly superstar.
I mean, he led the FCS in yards from scrimmage. That's not
teasing.
Nothing.
I'm just teasing. Here's the deal. To me, there's a couple different ways to look at running back right now. Do they keep 4? I think that's a fair question. Usually, teams go back and forth with 3 or 4. Obviously, if you have 4 good running backs, then you probably keep all 4. But normally, I would say 3 is probably standard across the league.
I think Vrabel generally in Tennessee kept 3.
Yeah, and it also, you still have the practice squad to stash, a Terrell Jennings or even Larison if he doesn't get out of control, in the preseason and have a huge preseason. So do they keep all 4, including probably Larison with Stevenson, Gibson, and Henderson? Or I think the other question is does Larison play well enough where maybe like a guy like Antonio Gibson becomes expendable? I don't think Ramondre Stevenson is in that conversation of being quote-unquote expendable at any point. I think the plan is to have Ramondre Stevenson here with Travion Henderson as sort of a thunder and lightning kind of duo. But maybe Larison's also has some pass catching ability, has some of that sub package run ability, receiver out of the backfield. Like, could he have a great camp and maybe Gibson becomes like a trade piece or something like that at the end of training camp? That would be the only way that I could see Gibson and Stevenson both not being here, is if somebody like Larison makes a really strong push and they end up flipping Gibson for something, on roster cutdown day.
I wouldn't rule it out, because Larison has a coverage background in special teams, which I don't believe Gibson does. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I can actually pull that up.
He might have played a little bit there last year, but I wouldn't say that he's like a core special teams guy. Like,
right.
That's not.
So I think Larison's done both. He's returned and covered kicks. Gibson's only plays kick return. He hasn't played in coverage. So I think Larison's somebody you can send down the field to make play. I compared him last week to Brandon Bolden, right? who was a coverage player on special teams as well as a returner. If he's going to give you special teams value and they only want to keep 3 running backs and he can be your early down and passing down guy and can fit into either of those roles, I think he absolutely could make a push. And if he does, yeah, it's Gibson's the guy who's expendable more so than Stevenson. So I could see it. Now, I think there's a possibility they keep 4 as well. This is where you get into the at-large roster spots, which I love to talk about, positional minimums. So that 4th running back is probably competing with, we'll get to tight ends, right?
Yep.
Are they going to keep 3 tight ends? Are they going to keep 3 tight ends and a fullback? Is the fullback going to be the 3rd tight end? Like, that might be a competition with the 4th running back. Or are they going to keep 5 or 6 receivers? That's what that 4th running back spot's going to come down to in my mind.
Yeah, I'm interested to see Larison because the one concern that I had about him just watching his UC Davis tape, especially against teams like Cal when he did play teams that were FBS level and maybe a level up, the production was good against Cal. Like, it's not like he had a bad game. But his play speed and just like his ability to separate from packs, like when running backs, they get into crowds, and does that running back have the burst or the energy to get out of that crowd and really hit into the big open field like Travion Henderson can, right? And I just didn't necessarily see that gear from him.
Well, but he's not your starting running back.
Right. But my question is in terms of him making the roster and him truly making this interesting. Is he going to have the dynamic play speed to be able to make yards the same way he did in college? Because I think the difference between what I expected and what I ended up seeing with Larison is Larison to me was actually a better tackle breaker than he was like a space player. Like he's got pretty good contact balance and ability to avoid tackles, and he broke one run off against Cal where he like shrugs off like 3 or 4 guys, right? Like that. He ran with a lot of really good power and balance to his game, whereas I was expecting like a scat back, right? And that's not what he is to me, at least.
6 foot 215.
Yeah, he's definitely more of a not a power back, but like somewhere in between those two things. He's got quickness. He just doesn't have great burst or straight line speed or top end speed. So when you get to this level, is he going to be running in a lot of packs, a lot of crowds? Is he going to be bottled up a lot? That's going to be the questions for him. Is he going to be able to really get out into space and make bigger plays and extend plays with his as a ball carrier? I think there's something there with the quickness. He tested really well in the agilities. You see the jump cut ability. You see the smoothness with his cuts. You see that at the top of the route. You get him matched up against a linebacker as a pass catcher, and he's got the ability to get open. But then he's one of those guys that like gets open at the top of the route, catches the ball and goes down, right? Like he's not one of those guys that catches the ball at the top of the route on like an angle route or something like that and turns like a 6-yard completion into like a 20-yard gain. Like that's not necessarily
But again, this is a guy that was a UDFA.
Yeah.
So,
but if he's going to make the roster, like that's how he's going to make it. Like he's not going to make the roster as a 1st and 2nd down running back. He's going to make the roster because he can contribute in the pass game and because he can run in sub-package situations, maybe because he can play on special teams, like, and all those things.
No, but I
think
he can play on early. I think he can play on early downs.
Okay.
Burkhead played on early downs. So, by the way, just comparison for speed here.
Yeah.
Larison didn't run at the combine, ran a 4.46 40. So even if we want to round that up, pro day number.
He ran a 4.46.
At his pro day, we can round it up to a 4.5.
I don't think he was anywhere close to 4.46. But no, truly no disrespect, but like he looks like a 4.6 guy to me.
Okay, even still. So here's another one that has him at 4.57 because it's pro days.
4.57 sounds
Let me see
better.
if I can find his RAS card. Larison.
That 4.57 sounds
I think my
more
argument's gonna stand no matter what. The math bomb has him at a 4.57, so we'll use that 4.57.
Yeah. Which again, it's not the end of the world. Like running back 40-yard dash times for running backs is not overly important.
What do you
should mention that.
What do you think Brandon Bolden ran?
Oh, probably 4.6.
4.66.
Yeah.
What do you think Rex Burkhead ran?
Yeah, not well. He was 4.61.
4.73.
Oh, well, I didn't realize it was that bad.
Yeah. So I'm not worried about top line speed. I think he can still be the player for that role. Is he going to be a big home run hitter? No. That's why they drafted Travion Henderson. You want the home run hitter? You put Travion Henderson in the game. I'm not super. It's a fair critique. I just don't think it's going to be that much of a factor in terms of if they're putting him in a role where he needs to outrun guys to succeed. That's on the coaching staff for putting him in the wrong role.
That's fair. I I look at his game, and I like I said the other day, I know you called me lazy for making the Rex Burkhead comparison, but I still feel like that's accurate.
I didn't realize Rex Burkhead was as big as he was. That's why I said that.
Yeah, I mean, like the play style, the size, like all the measurements, like check out to match up with Rex Burkhead. Quicker, not fast. Like that, all those things.
I will still, because I think he has that defensive mentality on the offensive side of the ball. I'm still going to put Brandon Bolden out there, but Bolden and Rex Burkhead are similar players.
Yeah,
so.
Sure enough. All right, let's go to receivers.
Yeah,
this is a lengthy list, so we got 12 names here. Stephon Diggs, Matt Collins, Demario Douglas, Kyle Williams, Kendrick Bourne, Kayshon Boutte, Jalen Polk, Javon Baker, John Giles, Efton Chisholm, Demir Blankamuzzi, and
Blank Musée,
and Jeremiah Webb. So that's 12 names currently at wide receiver. As Paul Perillo likes to say, don't mistake a lot of names for having a good receiver room, right?
Sorry,
there's
Blankamsey.
Yeah. There's a lot of names there. A couple of facilitation questions that I jotted down. The consensus seems to be that Stephon Diggs, in some capacity, whether it's PUP or on the roster.
Well, this is what makes it tough. If we're talking about the 53-man rosters, their roster spot there, no.
For this first question, and then we'll get to that second part. For this first question, let's assume that Stephon Diggs is going to start the week 1 on the 53.
On the 53, okay.
Stephon Diggs, Matt Collins, Pop Douglas, Kyle Williams. Those feel like the 4 locks, consensus locks.
Yes.
At this point. So my question, for the sake of facilitation, is among this group that I'm about to name of 4 players, who is the safest receiver out of these 4? Kendrick Bourne, Kayshon Boutte, Jalen Polk, Javon Baker.
So
that's the group, right? Like
right. In theory, because they're going to keep 5, and then the question is, would they keep 6, and what happens with Diggs? Right. In theory, it should be Jalen Polk, just because usually teams give a second-round pick.
Yeah.
The way Vrabel, Wolf, Cowden, the way they've taken a hatchet to this roster, I don't think that holds weight, or significant weight. Maybe a little bit, but I don't think they'd be afraid to move on from a second-round pick. I don't think they would. So I'm going to go with Kendrick Bourne with a caveat. So I think it's Kendrick Bourne because McDaniels had a lot of success with him. In 2021, this coaching staff seems to be really big into familiarity. Who are guys we know we can work with? Who are guys we know will do what we want? Blah, blah, whatever. I love this stat. Before he had COVID in 2021, Kendrick Bourne was on a 1,000-yard pace.
Yeah. He was on a 1,000-yard pace in 23, too, with Bill O'Brien and a similar offense.
So it's really I think Kendrick Bourne's a really good player that there's been a series of unfortunate events that they've never been able to tap into his potential.
Yeah.
But here's the reality of it. As big of a fan of his as I am, and I say this all the time, right? Kendrick Bourne, I'll find a spot on my team for that guy any day. He's going to be 30 years old in August, and he had a significant knee injury.
Yeah.
So 2 years removed from the ACL, that's encouraging. If Bourne is healthy and explosive, and maybe isn't exactly the player he was in 2021, but is a lot closer to that than he was last year, and that knee has continued to heal well, and he has another gear beyond where he was at last year coming right off that rehab, I think it's Kendrick Bourne because, again, I think the familiarity with McDaniels, that's going to hold a lot of weight. If it's not, if Bourne's out there and he just can't move, like the knee's not bouncing back right, and he turned 30, and I'm not rooting for. I hope he's the guy. I want him to be the guy because I think he has the highest ceiling of any of those players. But if physically he can't do it, then I think it's Kayshon Boutte because you need a true X. It's between him and Javon Baker. He's proven more. I think he has more of the mental makeup they're looking for. So then I think it would go to Kayshon Boutte. But if he's fully healthy with that, which I acknowledge is a relatively big if he's fully healthy, it should be Kendrick Bourne.
I'm with you. I would say Kendrick Bourne as well for all the same reasons. 2021, really solid year under Josh McDaniels. I think that familiarity, especially in an offense like this that is harder to grasp for wide receivers, it's just going to give him a nice leg up. It's the same offense essentially that he ran in 23 with Bill O'Brien too and had similar success. So he's got proven commodity or proven proof of concept in O'Brien and in McDaniels' offense. That's very almost like 99% similar playbooks, and he's done good in both of them. Whereas with Jalen Polk and Javon Baker, Kayshon Boutte, to an extent, he's with O'Brien in 23, so I guess he had a little bit of a taste of it.
Very
with
little.
O'Brien.
Remember, he played 1 week that year, and that was it.
but he was in the program at that point. But for all intents and purposes, those guys are young players that are going to be learning a complex offense on the fly here coming up, and Kendrick Bourne is going to come in and already have a really good feel for what they're trying to do. Now, what hurts to other than the injury and the explosiveness and all those types of things that you talked about, what hurts him to me the most is redundancy. And I understand that they've gotten into trouble in the past by caring too much about redundancy, but we're not talking about the draft. We're talking about putting together a roster. And if you're putting together a wide receiver room, the ideal wide receiver room to me is like a basketball lineup. Like you have a 1 through 5. You have a point guard and all the way up to the center, right? So you have big guys and small guys. You have different types of skill sets. Kendrick Bourne, to me, is like Stephon Diggs is sort of going to be in a similar mold ahead of him on the depth chart. You're going to want to play Kyle Williams. So he's
another guy with similar skill set.
Jalen Polk and Kendrick Bourne both have similar skill sets, and Jalen Polk is the younger player, year 2 for a second-round pick, rookie contract, like all those different things, right? Yeah. So if you look at redundancy, there's 3 or 4 guys on this roster that all play similarly to Kendrick Bourne, and Kendrick Bourne is the oldest, and he has the most injury history, and he's the most expensive besides Diggs. So when you add all that up, like it might not be great for Kendrick Bourne, but if he plays well enough, I think that ultimately they will just take the most talented 5 guys.
Yeah, they have to keep talent at that position, and I think I'm with you on the redundancy thing, but with these guys specifically, it's versatility. They can all line up at all 3 spots. So it'd be one thing if you had like 3 true X receivers, and that's what they do, and that's what they play, but like they can all play all 3 spots, so you can have all of them on the field at the same time. I don't think it's quite as redundant.
I just wonder, you mentioned with Booty. Booty is a guy that can truly play on the outside. Yeah. He might not be the most productive X receiver in the league, but he can truly play on the outside at a high volume like he did last year. I don't know if Diggs, Williams, or Bourne, and certainly not Pop, or any of those guys are truly going to be playing 500 snaps at the X. Like Kayshon Boutte could. So that means that if you put that group together, somebody's playing on the outside that's probably best used in a different role, whether that's Diggs or it's Kyle Williams. One of those guys is going to have to play on the outside. Or it's Mac Hollins that's playing a high volume on the outside, just as, like I like to say, the sacrificial X role, right? Like just to be out there. So maybe that they're comfortable with that. Boutte, I find fascinating in this room because he probably has the most trade value out of any of these guys, I would say. Younger player, rookie contract, cost controlled, had a nice year last year, almost 600 yards last year. Kind of usually when you see receivers start to break out, it like that 550 mark is like the line of demarcation, right? Once they get over that, you kind of feel like that receiver is starting to come on a little bit and might have even more in the tank, so to speak. So Kayshon Boutte, it's good and bad, right, in terms of him here. On the one hand, you could look at Kayshon Boutte and say, this is a third-year receiver with upside, with promise that we like. Or you could sit there and say, if he's the odd man out, we probably could get the most for him in a trade. And, which way do you fall on that with Kayshon Boutte? Would you rather them try to continue to develop him, or would you shop him?
I mean, it depends what they think his upside is. If they think he can be like a fringe 1,000-yard receiver, like, 800-900-yard guy, and that's probably what he's going to cap out at, I'd probably trade him.
Yeah.
If you think he can be like a 1,200-yard receiver, like a true number 1, obviously you keep him.
Yeah. Last one on the receivers, because I know it's a topic of interest, obviously.
Yeah.
Jalen Polk and Javon Baker, I don't know how secure they are. Like you said, it's a new regime. It's a new coach, and there's a new sheriff in town. As much as the sunk costs of Javon Baker's like 105, right? In the 4th round in his draft.
Wasn't he 116? Wasn't he taken after Layden Robinson?
You could be right about that, yeah. Jalen
110.
110. So 2 guys that were drafted high.
Layden Robinson was 103.
Yeah, one at 37 and one at 110. That's investment in both those guys. But it wasn't Mike Vrabel or Ryan Cowden's investment, right? It was somebody else's investment. I just wonder, what they think about those guys now. Baker is a program type of guy that you wonder if he's going to be on the program, right? You got to get him on the tracks. Jalen Polk, I think it's more that Kyle Williams and Stephon Diggs are just kind of more explosive versions of Jalen Polk, and they have maybe another gear, more dynamic play speed than what Jalen Polk, even coming out, if you thought that Jalen Polk was going to hit. I still think you watch Kyle Williams play and you see a guy that has an extra gear than what Jalen Polk is going to bring to the table. So I'm interested to see what happens with those guys. Efton Chisholm is the one other guy I wanted to mention. He's a McDaniel slot, right?
Right. He has to be in the conversation.
You can call me lazy for that one too if you want, but he's
no, that's fair.
He's a McDaniel slot, and we've talked in the past about Demario Douglas being probably best used as like in the more like the Amendola to an Edelman than an Edelman to an Amendola. Guy that's more of like a 3 receiver package, 11 personnel package player in the slot, not
used
a high
more vertically.
Yeah, not a high volume guy, like that sort of thing. Efton Chisholm is one of those first and second level jitterbugs. Like that's what he does. I don't know if he'll make the roster. He might be a UDFA practice squad stash for a year and then maybe move up, try to see if he can make a push as we go along here. But I'm not ruling out Efton Chisholm like I'm not ruling out Land Larison.
Yeah, I'm not ruling him out either. And the thing with Larison I meant to bring up is he got a pretty significant signing bonus for UDFA. That's usually a tell. I don't know if we have the exact number on Chisholm, but I thought I saw something somewhere that he got a decent chunk of change too.
Yeah. So that's wide receiver. I know we're going to unpack that 17 more times between now and September.
Oh, yes.
That'll be fun. So next position here, tight end / fullback.
Yeah.
I put them both together. Hunter Henry, Austin Hooper, Jaheim Bell, Jack Westover still on the 90. He's still here. C.J. Dupree, my guy from Alabama. Brock Lampy, the fullback from Northern Illinois, true fullback, and G. Scott Jr., another undrafted rookie who the Patriots are reportedly adding. So 7 names, pretty good amount of tight ends on a roster, usually only carry 2 or 3.
Well, we know Mike Vrabel said at the owners' meetings, can we build a whole thing out of tight ends?
Yeah, I'm sure he would love that. So I think the biggest question that I have at tight end is breaking this down of Jaheim Bell versus Dupree and Lampy, and more so specifically to Bell. Like, is Bell's future as a fullback? Like, can they convert Jaheim Bell into, or at least more like a guy that's a Swiss Army knife that can maybe do a little bit of everything? But would Jaheim Bell have to be catered more towards a fullback role to push this roster? Dupree's more of like the prototypical prototypical inline tight end option. If they want to go that way, Bell's not that. Bell's not going to put his hand in the dirt and be a 6th offensive lineman. Like, I think Dupree's more like that. And then Lampy is a true fullback, so he's got the experience, and then Bell's like kind of in the middle of those two guys. So what I'm interested with the third tight end spot, if they do keep 3, is what's their flavor, right? Like what kind of guy are they going to go for here? It should be interesting. What are your thoughts on Jaheim Bell, and do you think that he's going to transition to fullback? Do you think that they have another role in mind for him? Where does he stand right now?
Yeah, I think, like you said, it all kind of comes down to fit, right? If they want that more H-back move role, then maybe it's Jaheim Bell, but he's going to have to improve as a blocker. But if it's going to be the traditional Josh McDaniels thing, like we talked about with Efton Chisholm, Brock Lampy's the traditional Josh McDaniels fullback. 6'1", 260, built like a brick wall. He's like, if the plan is for the fullback, more often than not, to go into the A-gap and meet a linebacker, who's going to fare better in that collision?
Yeah.
Brock Lampy or Jaheim Bell. That's just not really Jaheim Bell's play style.
Yeah.
He's more like a Kyle Juszczyk kind of guy. Brock Lampy's your outright lead blocker. So if that's what they're looking for, the traditional McDaniels fullback, it's Lampy. If they want the more Kyle Juszczyk move guy, then I think Bell is a shot, and I also think maybe G. Scott has a chance at that. The guy was a 4-star wide receiver recruit coming out of high school, and then moved to tight end after his first year, put some weight on, moved tight end after his first year at Ohio State. He's really an untapped player. Like, he didn't get a ton of run at Ohio State, and he's playing a new position, all that, so we'll see what they do with him. But if Josh McDaniels wants the next James Devlin, wants the next Jakob Johnson, it's Brock Lampy.
Yeah. The one question I had with Jaheim Bell, moving more to a fullback role is like he's kind of high cut. Like he's a taller guy and he's kind of high cut. When you think of fullbacks, you want guys that can really get leverage and like get underneath players and play with good pad level. And you typically want them built more, stouter, more compact, like Brock Lampy's built, right? Like 6'1", 260. You don't want 6'3", 250 or 245 like Jaheim Bell. You want a guy that is lower to the ground. To get that leverage and get that pad level advantage. So if he's going to play fullback, like does he have the flexibility in his lower body and that to sink and get underneath guys and really square guys up and things like that? I don't know, like you said, if that's necessarily his game. Now I know there's a lot of people that would probably love a fullback that's more of a passing threat. That's not Lampy. Like Lampy, if you release him out of the backside and he's like the check down option on the left side of the field or the right side of the field, like, yeah, he'll catch the ball and like he'll rumble for a few extra yards and go down. Like, I'm not saying he's a complete zero in terms of that. Like, he has enough hands to like just catch check downs and things like that. But with Jaheim Bell, in theory, and again, this is more of in theory, he's never actually done it. We've never seen it. But in theory, you might be able to have him run some more dynamic routes, like you mentioned, Kyle Juszczyk, right?
Yeah.
Someone that could potentially run a wheel, down the sideline out of the backfield or something like that. So would it be worth it to make that transition to a more dynamic, a more athletic fullback like a Jaheim Bell that might not be the battering ram that Lampy is, but might be someone that can add a little bit more in the passing game?
Well, this is where, so if Vrabel's going to put his fingerprints on this, right? Think back to what he had in Tennessee. He had Jaheim Bell.
Yeah.
But Jaheim Bell is a tight end.
Yeah.
They used him like an H-back, but Jaheim Bell is a tight end.
You mean Jonnu Smith?
Jonnu Smith, yes, thank you. Jonnu Smith. So is it there's another way we could frame this conversation, because I think they had a true fullback too, at least early on. They may not have the whole time, but I think they did early on. Is it Jaheim Bell versus Brock Lampy, or is it Jaheim Bell versus C.J. Dupree?
Yeah.
And is it, we think they want that third blocking tight end, a guy with some athleticism, might have some receiving upside, or, okay, we have our two traditional inline tight ends. They're going to block. They'll be fine. Jaheim Bell's going to be our move tight end, our H-back, our Jonnu Smith, but then we'll also still have Brock Lampy when we want to go I and just run down.
So that would be four guys at that spot. I mean, it's obviously Lampy's a fullback, but it's all kind of one.
This is what we talked about. How many running backs are you keeping?
Yeah. So maybe you keep three running backs and
if you decide, all right, we're good with, we're going to keep Land Larison, we're going to cut Antonio Gibson, or if they're going to move on from Larison and it's only a three running back room, that's how you get away from that.
Maybe I just can't imagine a Josh McDaniels offense without a fullback. It's just so ingrained in him, like regular personnel. 21, they call it regular. Like, when you call something regular, that it means that's like a base foundation element of your offense, right? So 21 personnel, two back, full back, running back in the backfield, like that's a McDaniels go-to. And I feel like whenever S hits the fan for the Patriots offense with McDaniels, whether it was 19, 20, 21, 8, really 18, 19, 20, 21, what do they go to? They put the quarterback under center. They put the two backs behind him, and they're running downhill, right? Like that's what you go to when you want to close out a game, when you're not moving the ball through the air and you're struggling. Like, we're going to go to our regular, we're going to go to our base stuff, our day one install, and we're going to run lead ISO right at you, and we're going to try to move the ball by running it downhill. Until McDaniels doesn't do that and doesn't have that in his bag of tricks, I'm not going to believe that he'll roster a team without a fullback.
But again, are you doing that stuff with Jaheim Bell?
Right. You could be. You could be either way.
But Brock Lampy he's
that guy.
Yeah.
Or in theory, and as we move on to the offensive line, like you could do it with a sixth offensive lineman. Now, that's really a tell. Like, now you're really telling the defense that you're going to probably be 85, 80-20 maybe run pass, right? Like, you're really telling the defense at that point that you're running the football. But I broke up tackles and interior offensive linemen for the sake of the exercise. So let's start with tackles. Will Campbell, Morgan Moses, of course, Vidarian Lowe, Caden Wallace, Demontre Jacobs, and Marcus Bryant, the Patriots' 7th-round pick. So Will Campbell, Morgan Moses are your starters. They're obviously going to be here, left tackle, right tackle. The fascinating conversation I had, or have with the next couple spots here.
Yeah.
A couple of questions. Vidarian Lowe. We talked about this a little bit last week, I think. and we've talked about it a little bit in the past. Vederian Lowe is a one-position backup. Vederian Lowe is a left tackle backup. He is not very good at right tackle. He's not a guard. He's not going to play inside. If you're on an NFL team as a backup, it's kind of hard to make a roster as a one-position backup.
Kind of need to be multi-positional. And the same can be said for DeMontre Jacobs.
Yeah, and I would say really on the offensive line in general, like in particular, it's really hard to make the team as a 7th, 8th offensive lineman if you have no position flex. Like you are just locked into left tackle. Now, my other question...
Vrabel even said that's something they're going to value from backup offensive linemen in particular, is ability to play multiple positions.
So is Vederian Lowe, what's his status? What's his future as a one-position backup? And I still have not totally given up on Caden Wallace.
Yeah.
We haven't seen him, mainly, is the reason. He didn't play basically at all his rookie year. So unlike some of the other rookies that we did see play last year where you might be a little bit lukewarm on them at this point, Caden Wallace is kind of like this unknown character in all of this. Now, my expectation or my hope with Caden Wallace is that they're training him to play right tackle once Morgan Moses decides to hang it up.
Right.
Or at least that's the idea, right? That he's in the developmental pipeline.
See what you have a year, see what you get. If you think that he can be that guy, you keep developing. If not,
You're
all right,
drafting another
you
one.
didn't do it with live bullets flying, and you draft somebody next year.
So Caden
kid from Miami.
Caden Wallace as the right tackle in waiting, if you want to call it that. I think there is some ability for him to maybe potentially play a little bit of guard if you wanted to do that.
Yeah.
So the question more is like, do you keep Caden Wallace on the track of just you're going to play right tackle and we're going to earmark you as the right tackle of the future to Morgan Moses, or do you move him around and try to find places for him to play, whether it's left guard, whether it's swing tackle, being able to go both ways at tackle, which way do you go with Caden Wallace?
So I think you keep him as a developmental right tackle prospect. That doesn't mean he can't maybe give you some right guard snaps if you need. Certainly would be, to your point, if that's the group, he's going to be your 6th offensive lineman, and we saw him do that last year, be that jumbo tight end. So I figure that would be his role. To me, with Vederian Lowe, it comes back to Marcus Bryant.
Yeah.
Because Marcus Bryant is a true swing tackle. Is he a good one? Is he an NFL caliber one? That's what we're going to have to figure out in July and August. But, I think people get a little too on Vederian Lowe's case. Like, he's not a starting caliber player. He's not, and they shouldn't have created a situation where he was starting last year. But I think he's like an NFL caliber backup. We saw that last year. Like, there were spots where he could hold his own. It wasn't consistent enough to be a starter, but he can only play that left side, like you said. If Marcus Bryant can play the left side at close to or at or better the same level as Vederian Lowe, and then play on the right side at a similar level, well, if you have two guys who are similar caliber left tackles, but one can also play right tackle, that's a no-brainer who you're keeping.
Yeah.
So to me, I think Campbell, Moses, and Wallace are on the team.
Yeah.
It's Vederian Lowe, Marcus Bryant, and if you want to throw DeMontre Jacobs in there, you can for the last spot. I do think they'll carry 4 tackles.
I'm pretty much with you. I think what's interesting.
But then the idea would be if Bryant proves he can be a true swing, Morgan Moses moves on. Will Campbell's your starting left, Caden Wallace your starting right, Marcus Bryant's your backup at both spots, and you're keeping 3. Right, you're keeping 3 tackles long term. You just need to keep an extra guy this year while you develop Wallace.
I find it I think there's a real possibility, and hopefully Will Campbell is healthy his entire rookie year. We don't have to find out, but I think there's a real possibility that a guy like Marcus Bryant, like you said, could be a swing tackle because I think he did a little bit more of that at Missouri, and there's some more of that in his game. Or I think he was at SMU first and then Missouri. But with Marcus Bryant, isn't there a world where if they needed somebody to go in at left tackle, that he probably gets the call over Caden Wallace, and Caden Wallace is just focused on playing the right side?
Left tackle? Oh, yeah. No, I don't want Caden Wallace to be the backup left tackle.
Yeah, so you want him to be in a developmental pipeline for right tackle and then duke it out
he can play jumbo tight end or whatever.
Right. And then duke it out for the swing tackle between Lowe, Jacobs, and Bryant.
Well, kind of.
Well, it would be. I don't know if Lowe can do it.
Brian is the swing tackle, and if not, it's just Lowe and Jacobs, and you're committing to carry, because in this case, you're moving on from Marcus Bryant.
Right.
You're now committing to carrying 4 tackles, and you're going to have to find another swing tackle.
And then Lowe's backing
up
Campbell, and Wallace is backing up Moses. That could definitely be where it goes as well. So I think
Bryant,
it's either possibility.
No doubt, he just got drafted. The other 2 guys have been in the league. Bryant has and when I say this, I mean as a backup.
Yeah.
Bryant has much more upside than Jacobs or Lowe.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I mean, in terms of upside, I agree. Yeah.
Just the ability to play both sides.
Yeah, I think
he
Vidarian
has
Lowe,
a real ability to swing tackle.
Because I agree with you with Vidarian Lowe. Like, I don't think Vidarian Lowe's awful.
Yeah.
I think Vidarian Lowe's inconsistent.
Yes.
And because of that, he's not a starter.
Right.
Because he has these mental lapses where he's, not lining up correctly or jumping offside or just not locked in every snap, and that's why he's not a starter.
Right.
But there are starting level reps on Vidarian Lowe's tape. It's just you can't just ignore the bad stuff, right? And that's why it was such a need. But Vidarian Lowe's an NFL player in terms of being a backup left tackle. He's just only a backup left tackle, which makes things complicated for him. Let's move to interior offensive line. There's a lot of names here as well. Some interesting battles, certainly at left guard. But I also think there's a battle at center. I don't think that's a shoe-in for Garrett Bradbury.
I've been saying that since free agency.
Mike Onwenu, Layden Robinson, Garrett Bradbury, Jared Wilson, Cole Strange, Sidney So, Ben Brown, Tyrese Robinson, Wes Schweitzer, Jack Conley, Cole Bordeaux. So that is 11 names at interior offensive line.
Did you say Jack Conley?
Yes.
Okay.
They're obviously not going to keep 11 interior offensive linemen.
That would be too many.
They probably are going to keep 4 or 5. 4 is probably more likely. The two questions that I have here are, obviously left guard. That's one of the biggest camp battles, I think, across the board. But really,
it's the most wide open.
The guy that's the true wild card here to me is Jared Wilson, because straight up, there's a world where Jared Wilson beats out Bradbury for the starting center job. I think that is a real case for that.
You're talking about in camp.
Yeah.
Because I think what this
week one starter.
Right. I think what this is all about is Jared Wilson's going to start at center at some point this year for the Patriots. It's just a matter of how long Garrett Bradbury can hold him off.
Yeah, or at least by 26, certainly.
I think even maybe late this year.
So, yeah, I think it's a definite possibility he's a year one starter.
Well, but here's the thing. Is Garrett Bradbury one of these guys, because this goes to the numbers, is Garrett Bradbury one of these guys that is a veteran, 6-year starter in the league? Is he here no matter what, or is it start or he's not on the team?
It's a good question. And the contract, I'm sure, the numbers come out and it's all inflated and stuff like that.
They can get out of it.
They can probably get out of the contract. That's the question that I have. Like, is Garrett Bradbury truly safe? Because if Jared Wilson comes into camp, and I know it's people that are on his side or in his camp that I talk to, but I've talked to some people for the feature that I'm writing about him on the website, and the guy is just supremely talented. Like, the words that you're hearing about him are special in terms of his physical traits. He falls in the draft at the 3rd round because he's a 1-year starter and he plays center, right? So it's not a position of value, and he only played 1 year at Georgia. But everybody you hear talk to him is comparing him to some pretty high comps, right? Not quite like Jason Kelsey, but the comp that I got from Duke Manyweather was Eric McCoy in New Orleans.
What was Dane's last week? Had a good one. Do you remember?
I remember he had one, and I don't remember who he said.
I'll find it.
So regardless, there's the word uniquely talented, special in terms of his traits, the athleticism. The real question with Jared Wilson is can he?
Rodney Hudson,
great player. The real question with Jared Wilson is mentally, can he catch on quick enough to be the week 1 starter? And I know we disagree a little bit on this, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. I believe that there's a world where Jared Wilson's playing left guard as a rookie, because if he plays left guard, there's there's less mental tax on him than playing center.
Yeah.
But he's still one of their best 5 blockers.
But then how is he going to learn that mental stuff that he needs to learn to play center?
Well, couldn't he learn all that stuff still? I don't know what's holding him back, being ready to play left guard.
Because I think at a certain point you have to do it to learn it, that position. It's different.
I just wonder if there's a world, and I don't wonder, I think could be a world where Campbell and his left to right, Campbell, Jared Wilson, Garrett Bradbury, Onwenu, Morgan Moses is your 5 best offensive linemen.
But don't you think that if Wilson is good enough to play left guard, or ready enough to play left guard, start there, he's ready enough to start at center, how big is the difference between Garrett Bradbury and Sidney So or Layden Robinson?
That's a fair question, but I'm more thinking about it in terms of you have a second-year quarterback back there. Garrett Bradbury started like 80 games in the NFL. He's an experienced NFL starter at the position. How much of a help is Garrett Bradbury going to be from a communication standpoint with Drake May? And is that enough to, just for this year, have Garrett Bradbury here while Jared Wilson is waiting?
Does that offset having a rookie left side, which you're going to have, a full rookie left side?
You would.
I also think the first thing you hear about with Wilson is his football IQ. I don't think it's a wrong take in a bubble, but I think for Jared Wilson specifically, a major reason he went as high as he did was his intelligence. Yeah,
he's a really great talent.
Yeah.
We'll see if he puts it all together. I mean, that's a question with any of these rookies, but he's a really great talent. I wonder if there's a scenario where it's like Jared Wilson as a blocker is just so dynamic that he's too good to keep him off the field, but we just don't feel great about our battery, to use a baseball term, being a rookie and a second-year guy at quarterback, right? Like it's just a lot of youth at two highly complex communicative type of positions. Whereas at left guard, like he's just blocking the people in front of him, right? He's just playing left guard.
We've also seen McDaniels. Wasn't there one year? It probably would have been the year Andrews was sick. That Joe Thuney did all that
at
left guard.
Well, Teddy Karras was the center the year that Andrews was sick, so I can't imagine that Ted Karras didn't have a hand in it.
I know, but why do I remember?
Maybe it was like Ted Karras got hurt for like a game or two.
Maybe that's what it was.
James
I
Ferentz had to go
remember
in
there being a year, or at least a portion of a year, where Joe Thuney was making all the line calls from left guard.
It's possible.
And so couldn't you do that with Michael Onwenu?
You could. I don't know if Onwenu is really that kind of guy, in terms of like the really studying it and knowing the X's and O's. Like that's what it goes into as well. It's like, it's not just, he's a loud guy, he's a good communicator on the field. It's also like the study habits that you have to go into the game, and you have to understand all their fronts, and you have to understand all their pressure packages on third down, and where they like to bring blitzes from, and what their tells are, and like all the study and film work that goes in to being ready to call out line calls in an NFL game. Like, you have to have somebody that's prepared to do that and is ready to do that. Garrett Bradbury's been doing it for 6-7 years, right? Like, he's definitely ready to do it. I just don't know if other people are. And maybe they will be. Maybe Jarrett Wilson will be ready for it. We'll see. But I think
you draft the kid for his intelligence. I
think they drafted him because of his athleticism.
Well, that too.
His athleticism is sky high. His upside and his traits are immense.
Yeah, it was in 2019. At some point, like I'm finding like sort of tweets about it. I can't find the full article, but I'm pretty sure at some point in 2019, Joe Thuney was making line calls for the Patriots as the left guard.
I believe it. So the other conversation here is obviously just, let's take Wilson out of it. Just the competition at left guard really feels like it's between Robinson, Strange, and Sidy Sow, who I'm not ruling out winning the job either because of his success in 23 with Bill O'Brien.
But here's the thing. Let's say Wilson makes the team and Bradbury is cut.
Yeah.
Who wins the battle for backup center, Ben Brown or Cole Strange?
So here's the thing about Strange that I think helps him, right? And I know that there was some photos from OTAs where it looked like Strange was snapping, so like he's definitely getting some reps at least at center.
Yeah.
That helps him, right? Like he could play left guard or he could play center. The one thing I remember when I talked to Jim Nagy, who's now at Oklahoma, but he was the director of the Senior Bowl. The one thing he mentioned with Layden Robinson when they drafted him last year is similar to what we were talking about with Darian Lowe. Like Layden Robinson's a guard. Like he's a one-position player on the offensive line. So Cole Strange at least has that in his back pocket that he can play center and he can play guard. So even if he's not the starter at left guard, like he could back up two different spots, which is big for him. Now,
or if even if he does win the job, you still might not need to carry a backup center because if Wilson goes down, you're playing. Although that's pretty against Scarnecchia's philosophy. So where does McDaniels fall on that?
In terms of moving.
Right? One in, one out.
Right.
So if Cole Strange, you're starting left guard and your backup center, now essentially if you're center, you lose one player, you're on two backups.
You lose two players.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe they wouldn't be as quick to do that.
So as it stands today, without any practice we have not observed a single thing.
Yeah.
So just off your gut, Robinson, so strange. Who's the starting left guard when we get out to training camp on day one?
I think City So is the best potential there. Oh, who's it going to be day one?
Yeah, like when we get out to our first OTA practice and we see the starting five, who's at left guard?
Jeez, that's tough.
Yeah, that's why I
think City So's going to win it.
Yeah,
but
the pads will have to come on for him.
It could be anybody.
I think it's going to be Layden Robinson.
Yeah, probably.
I think there'll be enough from Elliott and the people that are still here from last year that they'll push for Layden Robinson to get it. There is like an undercurrent there for Wes Schweitzer, who's like had some experience in the league and is.
It might be Wes Schweitzer just because he's a veteran.
Yeah, veteran guy. That there's some love for him there. I love Jack Conley. I was going to say, player.
Jack Conley belongs in this conversation. Maybe not to be the starter, but
definitely as a backup.
We've talked about the versatility a lot.
He can play. I think he could probably play all five spots.
I think he's too tall to play center.
He can definitely play all four.
Four. Yeah.
Yeah.
He has 4 position versatility. I think he's going to be competing hard for backup role. He's somebody that. So when I do my roster projection, I think we both do this the same way. I'll put on at least the first one of the year, and then I kind of tweak each one. But all right, I'm going to go through. I'm just going to list every player that I think has a decent chance of making the team.
Yeah.
And then I'll go from there. Or every player that I want to put on this roster projection.
Yep.
I have Jack Conley on there.
Yeah. Jack Conley, I think, is going to have a nice NFL career. I don't know if it's going to be here. And when I say nice, I don't know if he'll ever be a entrenched starter in the NFL. But the thing that, when I was at Boston College's pro day, everybody just kept on saying, 6-man. He's going to be the 6th man of some offensive line where he's going to be a 4-position backup. And, our left guard goes down on the opening drive, Jack's going in. Our right tackle goes down on the opening drive, Conley's going in. It has so much value that he can do that. He also played a little bit of jumbo tight end too, tackle eligible stuff. He's just got a ton of versatility. So those are some of my, where my burning questions are, if you want to put it that way, on this group as we head into OTAs and what I'll be looking for. And it's an interesting roster on offense because you have some locks. There's no doubt about it. There's some real entrenched guys, Campbell, Moses, Henry, Hooper, probably the receivers we mentioned, Stevenson, Travion Henderson, and obviously Drake May and Joshua Dobbs. But, those at-large spots, like you like to call it, they're up for grabs. They're wide open.
I have 36 players with a real shot at making the team on offense.
Yeah.
And in reality, that number is probably going to be somewhere from 24 to 28.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. We'll open it up to you guys now. That was fun, and we'll get into it. But before we do, hey, Patriots fans, if you want to see Toyota's best offers, including those not seen on TV, go to buyatoyota.com. It's Toyota's official website for deals from the official vehicle of the New England Patriots. Toyota, let's go places. And I might need one of these to watch the Celtics game tonight. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. Let's get to the phones. I know Sean and Patty have been waiting, so I apologize. But Sean, what's up?
Hey, guys.
Hey.
A couple of weeks ago, you apologized profusely about not getting to the emails, and it's kind of funny, to me at least anyways, because I wrote in an email just asking or stating that I don't think Andrew Mukuba would be there because he's going to be drafted too high. What do you think of Craig Woodson? And I also asked in the same email about 3 fullbacks, including Brock Lampy. So what your opinion? So it's kind of funny how things went. And with this team, there's so many changes, which makes sense when the previous year you only won 4 games. So I think there's going to be half the team is going to be different from last year. And I'm excited. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm excited about this class. I can imagine 10 of the 11 draft picks being there on day one as starters, or just on the team anyway, not necessarily starting, but being part of the 53. And then the other question I have for you is, being that of the draft picks, who do you think has the longest shot of making the team? So that's my question to you. And thanks a lot. Speak to you soon.
Thanks for the call, Sean, and good call on the draft picks.
Yeah.
You nailed it. I would say, I don't know, the longest shot to make the team is hard because I think there's a realistic path for all 11. I really feel that way.
Is it lazy to say Kobe Minor? I know he was the last pick, but like,
sure, I guess, yeah. I mean, that's an easy one.
It's a crowded room.
Yeah.
Jordan Polk, the corner safety from Texas State, who's a UDFA, is a similar player who is going to push him. So, a lot of those late picks, Borgalis should be a starting kicker.
Yeah.
Ashby's obviously going to make the team. He's a long snapper. Marcus Bryant, we just talked about with his versatility, is a good shot. And then, fifth rounder up, usually keeping those guys.
Yeah.
So
and
I think it's kind of Kobe Minor just by default.
Yeah, and the two defensive linemen, we're going to do these next week, but like Joshua Farmer and Braden Swinson, to me, are not typical 4th and 5th round picks.
No.
Like those guys have much higher upside than your typical 4th and 5th rounder. So I would be absolutely stunned if both those guys are not on the roster. They kind of remind me a little bit more of like Booty and Pop Douglas, like when they drafted those guys in the 6th round, and we were like, well, Booty had the injury in college, is right, and Pop is just a small school guy. That's why he fell.
0-star recruit.
Yeah, right. Like those guys felt like more sure things than your typical 6th round pick. I feel the same way about Farmer and Swinson where they were drafted. I think those guys are rotational players at the next level in a really deep class. So Kobe Minor is the obvious answer. I think that there's a world where Marcus Bryant's an odd man out too, probably just based off of where he was drafted.
Yeah, he'd probably be next.
Yeah, I would say those two guys. All right. Patty is in Agawam. What's up, Patty?
Patty, what's up?
Give us a call back. I had him on hold for a while. Give us a call back, Patty. Here he is, Eldred's in North Carolina. What's up, Eldred?
Hey, fellas. How y'all doing?
Good. How are you?
Question. I love your prediction on wide receivers, but all the old guys, I know Polk and Baker ain't showed nothing, but you don't think one of the guys like John Giles or one of the guys could push Mac Hollins off the roster? I know they signed him a free agent, but you don't think they can push him?
Thanks for the call, Eldred. Go ahead. You have another one?
No, I had a rant, but I'll wait till later because that's Greg Gard or whatever his name is. But I'll wait on that. I just got a rant.
Okay. On Matt Collins, I think Matt Collins is here.
Yeah.
I think it's a combination of you just signed him as a free agent. He has familiarity with McDaniels, and they need some sort of like they signed him in my mind to be like a character guy in that room, like to be a leadership, a glue guy in that room. So even if maybe one of these guys, has more quote unquote raw talent than Matt Collins does, I think he's going to be here. He's also a core special teams player, so I think he's going to be here. What's your rant, Big E? What do you got?
Greg, I don't like the. I listened to his podcast. Matter of fact, I unsubscribed to it. I don't like the way he downrated Milton. I don't think it was a bad guy because you heard it all during the season. And I just don't like what he said or whatever. But it's always like when a player go away, you grandfather when he first get here, then when he leaves or whatever, they just, what you call it, the Foxborough Blues. And I just hate when you do a person like that when you never heard from the beginning. Now, I don't blame him for trying to push for a starting position. So if nobody on that roster want to push to be the man, then they shouldn't be on the roster. Besides just taking money and space. And that's just the way I feel about competition.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, man, for hearing the rant.
No problem. Thanks for the call, Eldred. I assume he's talking about Bedard's report about Joe Milton being a bad guy. I assume that's what he's talking about. Look, I have no information on whether Joe Milton was a good guy or a bad guy or anything like that. I'll leave that to Greg. I heard great things about Joe Milton when they drafted him. He was like the Senior Bowl Good Guy Award winner, and like people were really high on his character and likable guy, fun guy to be around. But I don't have much more to add other than that. I don't know what happened last year.
Yeah, just to what Eldred said. Like, I don't doubt Joe Milton wants to be a starter. I would want anybody on my team to like really be aggressively pushing, but I also think that they may want a certain environment for Drake May, and I think after going through Zappy Fever, this organization may be a little too or a little more in tune with that kind of idea, but you hope it doesn't come back and bite him. Joe Milton, I think, would be a really good backup quarterback. I would have had him on the depth chart ahead of Josh Dobbs. If Drake May gets hurt, that's going to be a massive second guess.
Yeah, no, it's both points are fair. The backup quarterback's always the most popular guy in town, as they say. I think it was
on a losing team.
It was it Michael Bishop, right?
Yeah.
The quarterback years ago that wasn't quite as alien-like as Joe Milton in terms of the traits, but had a huge arm and could get outside the pocket and really hum it, and like had similar kind of checked similar boxes in terms of like the skill set, right? And everybody was infatuated with Bishop the same way that they have been infatuated with Joe Milton. So there's always that guy. There's always that guy kicking around. It was obviously Zappy for a few years. I understand totally clearing the decks for Drake May if that's what they did. I don't know 100% that is what the intention was, but certainly seems like that's what everybody believes, or reading tea leaves on it is what everything points to. But we'll see. I don't have any real big gripes with trading Milton. I thought it was interesting that they did what they did to get a higher draft pick by swapping instead of just getting an outright draft pick out of him. I think would be like the only thing that I'd look at. You know, maybe if you had held on to him like Jimmy Garoppolo, Jacoby Brissett style, if you developed him for another year or two, and then in like year 3 of the rookie contract you traded him, like maybe you could have improved his value slightly by doing that. But I think Joe Milton is a really fun career backup. Like I think he's going to be a really fun backup for some team, maybe Dallas. But I don't know if they're going to be losing much sleep over him. But I agree with Big E in general that I don't love that. We do it in all sports, not just football. Like when a guy gets traded or a guy leaves town, all of a sudden all the skeletons come out about how bad of a dude he was. Like, we'll see. You know, I don't know how true that is or isn't. Alex is in Syracuse. What's up, Alex?
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Just a couple of questions. First of all, I want to say first-time caller because I'm usually working at this time when you're live, so I never get a chance. I always catch the show after the fact, so I'm happy to be able to call in.
Appreciate it.
Nice, thanks.
First question, is there anybody in the free agent class that's left that you look at that you could add as like a depth piece to help fix certain spots? I was looking and thinking like a Brandon Scherf at guard could come in if we don't love what you have currently for that left guard spot. And the second question, and I apologize if you answered this. I've been doing housework up and around. I haven't been in front of the show as much. Kayshon Boutte. It sounds like Mac Hollins is here, and he's probably going to be the X. With Diggs being here, and he'll probably be your ZX, and Polk being a Z slot, and Pop being the slot. Where do you see Boutte fitting in, and what can he, if he doesn't fit in, what do you think he could do to try and earn a spot on the roster?
Yeah,
and then with that, I'll take it off air, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks for the call, and thanks for listening. Good questions. We did talk a little bit about Kayshon Boutte earlier, so you can go ahead and hear that. But I think we both feel the same way about Kayshon Boutte, being one of the clearer pass to X receiver probably on the roster to play on the outside. In terms of the free agents that are available, Sheriff's an interesting one. He's a career right guard. I had circled Sheriff a little bit in free agency, potentially to come in and be like a veteran stopgap at left guard, potentially. But I believe he's played the majority, if not his entire career, on the right side. So he'd be switching over a little bit. But it's an interesting question in general. Just who are some names, if there are any, of guys that, let's say they get into camp and it's just not working. It's not working out at a spot, whether it's a veteran or it's a younger player, rookie, second-year guy that they thought was going to be a starter. There are some guys, it's not a ton of guys that are still available. There's some name receivers like Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper still out there. But like, even for instance, like, Matthew Judon. Right,
yeah.
like if you
that would be interesting.
Or Von Miller is a free agent. Like if one of those guys, you don't feel great about edge depth. You have Harold Landry, you have K'Lavon Chaisson, Anthony Jennings, Braden Swinson's a rookie there. Let's say Braden Swinson is not the third down pass rusher yet. Like he just isn't ready.
Right.
Could you sign one of those veteran guys like a Miller, like a Judon, like someone like that to just be a stopgap and play the position for a period of time. Maybe it's even only half the season, right? Like, and then Swinson's ready to contribute more down the stretch run. But that would be the spot. Preston Smith's a free agent still. Like that would probably be the spot that I would look at as maybe a place they could add would be pass rusher.
I'll give
edge guy.
you one more, Julian Blackman. If they feel like Woodson isn't giving them what they need at that deep safety position, and maybe Marcus Epsony isn't fully healthy, Blackman's still out there as a free agent.
Yeah, it's a good question, because normally what happens with those guys is we'll get into August, and like 2 weeks into training camp, someone will get hurt, or some team won't feel great about their depth at a certain spot, or great about their starter, at a certain spot, and then Zeke Elliott a couple years ago gets signed, right? And they bring in depth, and they bring in some reinforcements. So there are a couple guys kicking around that could fit that. I don't think Stephon Gilmore signed anywhere yet either, if I'm not mistaken.
No, he's not going to sign till it's going to be like last year. He just doesn't want to do camp.
Yeah,
he doesn't need to. I don't blame him.
Yeah,
but
that's totally fair. All right, I'm told that Patty is really here this time. What's up, Patty?
What's up, guys? Sorry about that Bluetooth malfunction.
All good.
So I got a question and another hot take, only this hot take is going to be centralized around the Patriots, not just a general NFL hot take. First off, question, is it out of the realm of the possibility that we can possibly trade for one of these maybe young, expendable tight ends? The two guys I'm thinking of are Michael Mayer and Cole Kmet, and the way too early off-season Patriots hot take is, are you ready for this? Kyle Williams wins NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. Let's go. I'll take the question off air, guys.
Thanks, Patty. I will say, I think there is a Patriot who could win Offensive Rookie of the Year, but it's Travion Henderson. It's not Kyle Williams.
When's the last time an offensive lineman won Rookie of the Year?
I don't think they've ever done that.
It might be time.
Oh, you think Will Campbell
Might
could
be
push
time.
for it?
He would have to be like absurd.
Yeah, but isn't there a world where Travion Henderson is there by the end of the season is their number one running back and rushes for 1,000 yards, or at least total, maybe rushing and passing,
and it's not a really
receiving.
Strong, offensive draft class. So.
Right, like it's going to be Travis Hunter if he plays receiver full time, which it sounds like he will. Ted McMillan. The two tight ends, Warren and Colson Loveland, will have a good chance. Colson Loveland, though, I don't know if he's going to be healthy right out of the gate, at the AC joint. So he might be, start the year on PUP or something like that, which will hurt his cause. I'm interested in Michael Mayer. I am.
It's not happening.
Because the Raiders won't do it?
Well, I don't think he likes McDaniels.
Oh, well, might not be his choice. If he gets traded, he gets traded.
Well, but this coaching staff is so big on fit, right? So
that's fair.
That was there was
there's some rumblings about that.
No, there was a story, or he gave a quote after McDaniels got fired where he didn't mention McDaniels specifically, where he basically just said he was much happier after McDaniels left.
Yeah,
and didn't name McDaniels, but
I mean, come on, that's fair. But McDaniels did draft him.
Said last year there were some days I didn't want to come in.
Oh, jeez. McDaniels did draft him.
Yeah.
So there's that. He definitely fits as that prototypical wide tight end in a McDaniels offense, hence why he drafted him when he was in Vegas. I still think that there's potential there. I was really high on him coming out of college. I think most people were. It was kind of a similar, watered down version of Loveland versus Tyler Warren, where Michael Mayer was the well-rounded, blocking tight end that could also catch passes, and then Sam Laporta or Dalton Kincaid was the receiving tight end, like a Colson Loveland. So Mayer was the Warren of that draft. Maybe not quite as highly rated of a prospect, but similar type of mold. Is there a world where he takes a few years, like a lot of tight ends do, and then year 3 or 4 he breaks out and has his best years ahead of him? I think there's a world for that.
We ran through that list of tight ends the other week, and a lot of guys who really weren't great until they got to their second team. I'm not against the idea as a whole.
The McDaniels thing might matter.
And whether it's Kmet, whether it's him or Cole Kmet, who I like.
Yeah.
One, neither of those teams have a ton of tight end depth.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they're I've heard them both talked about for the Patriots. I don't know why they're trading either one.
Yeah.
I don't know what the incentive is there. And for the Patriots, are you gonna get so you're gonna have to give up something significant for a guy that's probably going to be a third-string tight end right away.
Yeah.
You know, there was a time in the offseason where it made more sense just based on the way the offseason's gone. I don't think you need to overextend yourself to make that kind of move.
Right. Like, if they had not re-signed Hooper and the move
Completely
was
different story.
to trade a pick for Mayer and have him be the backup tight end.
Completely different story.
Then, yeah, I
but,
hear you.
like, right now, what is it going to cost? Is it going to cost a 5th-round pick? I'd probably do that.
Yeah.
Is it going to cost a 3rd? I wouldn't.
Yeah.
So.
All right, let's get to some of these emails. And then I do want to get to our math versus not math conversation before the end of the show. There, people have to humor us with a little bit of Celtics talk at the end of the show. But I want to get to a couple emails because we have a bunch of them coming in. I love this email because this is one of those things, and we've been doing this together long enough, Alex, to know that I fall for it every single time. At what point can we discern whether or not Landlarson and Efton Chisholm are more Jacoby Myers, I guess Jacoby Myers, or like, I don't know, Danny Woodhead or whatever. He didn't put a running back. Or Ralph Webb or TJ Moe. Like, basically, at what point do we know it's real with Chisholm and with Landlarson? The one thing that I promise everybody is that if Efton Chisholm goes out and has a great spring with no pads and no contact, and he's just jitterbugging all around the field and nobody can touch him because you're not allowed to, and he has a huge spring, I promise you I will pump the brakes and I won't go pedal to the metal on it, because I've seen that movie before. I'm really going to have to see, especially in the case of Chisholm specifically, because running back, you can't grade running backs till the preseason anyways. Like, there's no pads, there's no tackling to the ground. That one is really like, you can't really tell with a running back until, I would say, probably the preseason games. Like, you have to watch him play in games to really see what he's going to bring to the table. But with Efton Chisholm, I'm not getting excited or any other way about Efton Chisholm until I see him do it in a fully padded practice.
Who was the wide receiver he gave with Ralph Webb?
TJ Moe.
Austin Carr is right there.
I hear you. I'm working with the email.
So here's where I think it is. Like, Jacoby Myers. All right, so Ralph Webb, right?
Yeah.
Super fun preseason. But he was coming in the 4th quarter, and they were just handing the ball off on every play.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't really playing against anybody. There really wasn't anything drawn up. It was just, we need this clock to run.
Yeah.
Jacoby Myers, if I remember correctly, played almost start to finish in all of those preseason games.
Yeah,
he was on the field, maybe not against starters, but against like legitimate NFL backups, like guys who were going to make the team. So that's the differentiator. I don't know that there's one moment where it's like yes or no. Because Rodney McCarron made the team, looked good in the preseason, made the team, was not ready.
Yeah,
there's another name you can throw out there, but if I remember correctly, I'm not 100% sure that I do, and I'll try to find it. But like Riley McCarron was just kind of, and Austin Carr were just kind of playing in the 4th quarter of these games. They weren't really out there for a bulk, whereas Jacoby Myers was out there. I don't think he was catching passes from Brady, but he was out there with guys who were going to make the team against guys who were going to make the team.
Yeah, that's always a good tell.
That's the differentiator.
Yeah.
So
it's always a good tell of who's he running with, right?
Yeah.
And maybe it won't be with the starting quarterback right away, but if Efton Chisholm in August finds himself in a group with Kendrick Bourne and Jalen Polk and Javon Baker and that group, Kayshon Boutte in the group we were talking about earlier, and Efton Chisholm is getting reps over one of those guys or two of those guys, that's when you know it's starting to get real.
Right.
Now, if he's running with the threes all summer long, then they're not seeing it. They're not seeing that he's in that group yet. But I'm gonna have to I might not even believe it with Kyle Williams until I see him do it in regular season games at this point, because even though it wasn't eye-popping, Jalen Polk had a solid rookie training camp. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't eye-popping. It wasn't like, oh my God, this guy's a difference maker. He moves differently. This is incredible. But if Kyle Williams goes out there next week or the week after, whenever we have our first OTA, and he's tearing it up in spring practices, I'm gonna be cautious about that. I am.
So Jacoby Myers, his rookie preseason, where'd it go? I just had it. Played 44, 53, 60, and 51 snaps.
Yeah, played a ton
over those 4 games. Right, played a lot.
Yeah.
So for comparison, doesn't go far enough back for me for TJ Moe, but Austin Carr, the last 2 games, it started to drop off. He played a lot early, but not as much, especially in that third game. He only played 29 snaps in that third game, which was when the starters played.
Yeah.
So that's what it's going to come down to. Like, who is he doing it against? That's what holds weight.
So on these same lines, next question here from Christian. He asks, over under 3 UDFAs to make the 53-man roster. So 3 is the number.
I think it's going to be 3.
I think it's going to be
I
exactly
think it's
3.
going to be 3. I think it's going to be
Chisholm, Larison,
and
Lampy.
I'll say over, because maybe
Elijah Ponder.
either Elijah Ponder or Jack Connolly sneak on.
Yeah, I know I keep saying we're going to do defense next week, but we're going to do defense next week. And I think Elijah Ponder's got a real shot, too.
Yeah.
Right now...
Or Jordan Polk.
At edge, I got Landry, Chazon, Jennings, Swinson, Ponder. Like, that's only 5 guys. And...
Run through that again?
Landry, Chazon, Jennings, Swinson, Ponder.
Chazon. What about... Are you not counting Keon White as an edge player?
No, defensive line.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so looking at it that way, especially fit-wise, like schematically, is he a better fit, Ponder, than Anthony Jennings for, like, the style of play that they want to play? Up the field, guy that's got speed off the edge. Like, he, to me, fits way, he's way more in the Landry, Chazon, Swinson mold than Anthony Jennings is. So I think that there's a real chance for Ponder as well. So I'm gonna say push. I think push is the right answer, but it's a good, for the sake of facilitation in the conversation. I'll take the over on 3. All right, let's.
I have 4 on right. So again, I do that thing where, like, I put all those guys on. I have it down to 56 players right now. That's with 5 UDFAs.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, this is a good question. Probably a better question for Fred and Paul, because they know the history a little bit better than me. But would the team ever consider unretiring some jersey numbers?
No.
Personally, I think only 12 and 73 should be retired.
Well, 56 too, which isn't technically retired.
Yeah.
They just haven't given it back out. They should formally retire 56.
So 73 is John Hanna for people that don't know. I'm
and
not
56 is Andre Tippett.
56 is Tippett. So I was talking about this the other day or yesterday, and we didn't get to talk a ton about it. But I've been watching Celtic City. I think I'm 7 episodes in. Okay. Larry Bird just retired, which I thought was cool. Just side note, like, Brady night was basically Larry Bird night.
Yeah,
just bigger.
People had said that.
Yeah, it was the inspiration. Yeah, certainly. And Magic Johnson being with Bird, Peyton being with Brady. It was funny because I've been watching Celtics City with Jess because I'm such a big Celtics fan. She's trying to get to know the history of the team a little bit better. And she said, oh, it's just like Brady night. I was like, yeah, like it literally is just like Brady night. Side note. But I think that there's would be a really cool, and I get the history of the Patriots is not as interesting as the history of the Patriots, or the Celtics is not as, is way more interesting than the Patriots history, just based off the winning. But people our age and younger, like John Hanna, Bruce Armstrong, Ben Coates,
Gino
Cappelletti,
come on,
Andre
now.
Tippett, Stanley Morgan, Russ Francis, who's the freaking corner that I can't believe?
Mike Haynes.
Did
you say Sam Bam Cunningham?
Sam Bam. Like, all these names, I don't think that it's not talked about because they didn't win at the level of a Russell or a Bird or a Havlicek or something like that. So it's not the Celtics history. But, like, wouldn't it be cool to have, like, a doc like Celtic City that like went from like 1960 on and gave some flowers to, like, some of these people? Because we're talking about the Patriots Hall of Fame, and Adam Vinatieri got a question in here, kind of a comment in the emails as well, about how Vinatieri wasn't a career Patriot and he went to the Colts, and he played more years for the Colts than he did with the Patriots. And I just think that there's a Celtic City style documentary which really goes through the history of the Patriots and some of their great players that they weren't on dynasty teams and it wasn't that great, but I think it would be cool.
I mean,
for
again,
a lot of people.
Maybe I'm coming across as too much of a kid here. Aren't the 1976, or for a while, maybe this has changed in the last like 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
Weren't the 1976 Patriots considered for a while one of the better teams to not make a Super Bowl?
Yeah, and like that was 76, 85, 96 are like, those were the three best teams in Patriot history until the dynasty came.
One of those teams in the 60s, I think, is up there too, but yeah.
Yeah, and like the team in 76 is absolutely loaded, like with like Hall of Famers.
Yeah, no, I have it here. Steve Grogan was the quarterback. You have Sam Cunningham, Marlon Briscoe, Darryl Stingley, Russ Francis at tight end. Your offensive line, Pete Brock, Leon Gray, John Hanna.
Like, did people
realize? I don't think we said Julius Adams before.
He has a case to be in the Hall of Fame as well. Patriots Hall of Fame.
Yeah, Ray Hamilton.
Yeah.
Like they didn't have any of their great linebackers then. Tim Fox, Mike Haynes.
Younger people, and I include myself. Like, I'm not saying this to like back in my day. Like, no, like Leon Gray was awesome. Like, Leon Gray was a really good player.
Yeah.
You know, like that's a really good player.
He was actually, if you go back and watch, because I think the full video of John Hanna's Patriots Hall of Fame speech, or no, it was when they put Leon Gray in.
Yeah.
And John Hanna, he since passed away. John Hanna gave a really awesome speech about Leon Gray. Was it the year Bledsoe got in?
No,
because Bledsoe got in with Gil Santos.
No, this was like maybe Vince or Rodney, 2019.
Whatever it was, if you want to hear some awesome stories about the old school Patriots, John Hanna had some great stories about him and Leon Gray.
Yeah.
On the retiring number thing, though. So I don't think you should unretire numbers because it's not fair to the guys whose numbers are retired.
Yeah.
Also, for what it's worth, just objectively, aesthetically, we're not missing out on that many great numbers. 20 is a good number, but it's Geno, Mr. Patriot. You're not touching that. Like,
it's like Johnny Pesky. Of the
You're really missing 79? No offense to Jim Lee Hunt.
No.
You really missing seeing 79 out there?
No.
What they should do is they should retire 56.
Yep.
Stop retiring numbers after 56 and do some sort of Ring of Honor. And I guess that's what the Patriots Hall of Fame is, but there should be
something in the stadium.
Something in maybe you put a banner with all the names on it or something. Something in the stadium that represents that.
It is really cool, and there's multiple stadiums that are like this, but you know, going to some of the historic, like going to Lambeau and seeing like
all those
Bart
names
Starr,
up there.
Curly Lambeau, you know, like all the way across the stadium, like in the ring, like literally Ring of Honor across Lambeau, like that. I mean, the history, like that's really cool. Like, I'm not a big history guy, but like it was still really cool to see that. So I agree. You can't unretire the numbers. That's not fair. You know, there's a lot of talk about numbers and retiring numbers and unretiring because Abdul Carter asked for 56 from Lawrence Taylor, which good for Lawrence Taylor. Like, like go get your own number, dude. Like, no, I'm Lawrence Taylor. No, good for him. I feel the same way about like the Patriots retired numbers, you know, because I've seen a lot of people like, why do you retire numbers to begin with? Nobody, and I mean nobody, is wearing 12 for the New England Patriots ever again. Like, are you kidding me? Like, obviously not. Like, you're not doing that. Like, I personally would probably think about retiring 87 as well. That's the greatest tight end of all time.
So I have, by the way, Leon Gray got in with Rodney Harrison, which is
I figured it was around there.
So like, I think the purpose of retired once you reissue a number, it's too late. It clearly wasn't important enough.
Yeah.
So like when the Red Sox retired Wade Boggs' number, Brock Holt had to stop wearing it.
Yeah.
To me, it's about the mental association of that number in that font in those colors means something. Like, it's one of the stupidest things in sports that the Miami Heat have Michael Jordan's number retired. Right? Yeah. Jackie Robinson's another thing fine. Retiring the number of players who didn't play for your team, to me, is dumb. Because the idea is, like, when you see, and they have different uniforms now, so it doesn't happen as much in games, but, like, in practice, I'll be out there, and I'll see 37 if it's a defensive player, if it's in blue, and, like, every once in a while, a little thing in the back of my head goes, Ronnie Harrison.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking about the practice footage on the Super Bowl DVDs and on, NFL films of Rodney Harrison in the blue 37, or it happens especially when the number hasn't been worn by another prominent player, right? It'll also happen with guys like more recently, 28, still see James White, like the thing in the back of my head. So I think that's what retired numbers are about, that you have a certain association with that number and those colors and those font that like you shouldn't be looking at that. Like that it means something. That visual image means something, so you're moving on from that. It should be rare, but I do think there's a point to it. But like with football, I get it's different because there's so many players on the roster.
Numbers. I think the other thing that I would like more in pro football is one of the few things I like about college football.
Which is?
I love that certain numbers mean something in college football.
That is very cool.
Like 7 at LSU, 18 at LSU is another one that means something. Like, I love that that they have that. And, like, with the Patriots, I think it's, like, obviously 12 is off limits. No one's ever going to wear 12 again. But it's right there with certain numbers. Like, 24 is your top corner.
Yeah.
54 is your top linebacker. You know,
although Brian Waters did it proud, but yes.
Yeah, but like, maybe 80 or 81 is the receiver number. Yeah, Randy Moss wore 81.
60 at center.
Yeah, 60 at center. 87 at tight end is like your number one tight end. I am all for like guys like having the freedom to pick their numbers too, but I just feel like that's kind of cool.
That's how the whole concept of jersey numbers started.
Yeah.
The Yankees, it was their batting order.
Right.
So I would love the idea of an NFL team being like, all right, like you're in this role, you get this number, and
like wouldn't it be and look, he wanted to pick 0. That's totally his decision, but like wouldn't it have been cool? And maybe it's just cool because I'm a person that creates content, so it'd be cool for the content. But if like Ty Law and like Stephon Gilmore and Darrelle Revis like came out and like gave Christian Gonzalez 24 and were like, you're next, kid, right? Like maybe like 56, is like cool, the star pass rusher,
it's
right?
It's a cool it's franchise history. So this is something that I don't think this would work in the NFL. Michigan did this. They don't do it anymore, but they did. Instead of retiring numbers, if you wear that number, there was a patch on the jersey that had 2 or 3 names, depending on the history of the number, that like recognized. I remember Devin Gardner wearing 98, which is super weird for Michigan, but he had some connection or something to one of the guys who had worn it, and so there's a patch on the jersey that said the guy's name on it. Like, that was really cool. I don't think that would work in the NFL because the league wants everything to be so uniform within the uniforms, so they're not going to have that, but like...
I don't know. Just a thought. I just love that about college. I think it's really cool. Obviously it's like an honor, and then there's like it's really cool when you look at the history of like all the players at LSU that wore it with 7, right? That with Will Campbell, like all the players that wore that, like Patrick Peterson and like these superstar players that have come through LSU. Like it's just a cool element to the whole thing, and like you hand it down, it's like a big thing. It's a big deal.
A lot of schools, like, you have to earn a single digit number. You can't wear a single digit number right away.
Right.
No, it's a really cool it's a really cool thing. I don't think it would work in the NFL because the other part of it is you have this roster turnover every 4 years. You have a whole new roster, so you can continue to give it out. It kind of changes things, but I do like the idea, like, all right, 60, that's your starting center.
Yeah.
All right, 87 is the starting tight end, 24 is the corner, right?
Yeah.
I do like that.
Yeah. All right, let's take Mark's call, and then
but
we'll
they should retire 56.
It's out of circulation.
It is out of circulation, but I think Andre deserves the...
Yeah, I don't know what the story is there, because he obviously still works for the organization, and like it's out of circulation. I don't know if it's...
Just make it official.
I don't know. Mark is in Connecticut. What's up, Mark?
Hey, guys. Always appreciate you guys taking my call. Love you guys.
Of course.
Just a quick thing. Evan, our guy, CJ Dupree, love this kid. Apparently, he had like 5 or 6 other offers, undrafted free agent offers from other teams. And supposedly the reason why he came here was because he wanted Mike Vrabel to coach him.
Nice.
And that is huge. So thinking about that, like, it's almost like the Tom Brady days are back when players are going to now want to start coming here because, it used to be because of Tom Brady. Now, hopefully, players are going to want to come here because of Mike Vrabel. And then the other take was the Celtics tonight. They really need to lay the hammer down and just stop chucking up threes and just really get that killer instinct and just drive the hoop. When you got players in foul trouble, just keep driving the hoop. That's my take on everything. Love you guys.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for the call.
Who was the UDFA said?
Dupree signed here because of Vrabel, he said.
Oh, yeah.
He had multiple offers.
It's a little, one UDFA is a little bit away from saying, like, the draw of Tom Brady, but it's a good sign.
Yeah, no, there's multiple guys, though, in free agency, too, that have spoken about that. Mark segued us. It's the last 5 minutes of the show in May. You guys can stomach some Celtics talk, but I want to make this about football, though, because the conversation around the Celtics and people that aren't basketball fans, the Celtics shot 63 pointers in game 1 against the Knicks, which they lost, and set an NBA record with 45 missed 3-pointers. Right. So basically they were historically bad from 3 on Monday night, and they just kept chucking. They kept on chucking threes. And Alex and I, for the last 2 days in our texts, have literally not stopped arguing about this because I'm a Celtics green teamer. You cut me open.
Apparently,
I'm green.
blowing a 20-point lead to a team from New York, an inferior team from New York, is now considered acceptable.
No, I didn't say that.
Because they got one ring, so now they can do whatever.
So I think it's interesting, though, because this kind of goes back to our Ben Johnson, Mike Vrabel debate.
It's literally just the Ben Johnson, Mike Vrabel debate.
It's literally the same thing.
Kyle Shanahan debate. It's the same. Because
you use the Kyle Shanahan line, which, you got from me, kind of, but that's all right.
What do you mean I got from you?
We were texting about it, and
you think I didn't think of that on my own? You really think I didn't think of that on my own?
And then you had to take
Shanahan.
We got there together, and then you had to take a shot at Kyle Shanahan.
Hey, it worked when we were texting about Rory, kind of.
So here's the thing, though, about this with football. Basically, your argument, I think, is that, the nerds in football just want to throw the ball all the time and whatever. Be aggressive, go for it all the time, and the volatility is similar to the 3-point
Well,
shot.
it's just look. So, do the Celtics? Here's where I think I'm different from what you're hearing yelled at you. Do the Celtics in a bubble philosophically shoot too many 3-pointers overall? It's probably a little more than I'd like, but they're good at it. It's what they're built for. I don't think night in and night out the Celtics shoot too many threes. My bigger issue is there are going to, and this goes back to Shanahan thing. Yeah. There are going to be some nights or certain situations where it no longer makes sense to shoot threes. And the math coaches, whether it be in football, whether it be in basketball, certainly happens a lot in baseball.
Yeah.
Refuse to adjust from their strategy because the spreadsheet tells them this is what you need to do to win the game. The spreadsheet was created before the game, not when you're up 20 points in the third quarter or 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl, but they continue to go bombs away when really all you got to do with this big lead is just run out the clock. And it's maybe not mathematically sexy, but it's how you're going to win the game. Miami football, I'll give you another one. Like when they refused to take that knee last year, right? Because they wanted to add rushing yards or whatever, and they fumbled, and Georgia Tech won the game. Like, at a certain point, just win the game. Don't worry about the box score. Don't worry about your EPA or whatever it is at basketball, expected shot, something, whatever.
Yeah.
Just
very different things.
Just grind it out and win the game. That's my big problem.
So I think that...
And sorry, just to finish.
Yeah.
The Celtics are good enough that they can win multiple ways. That's what makes them a great team. It's not as easy without Porzingis on the floor. I wonder if it plays out differently with Porzingis in game one if he had been healthy. But, like, they did it. This is what makes it so frustrating. They did it against the Magic. I saw them do it last year against the Mavericks. Yeah. The just insistency, it almost took me back to game one of the season, which they won, but what'd they miss? The last 19 three-pointers trying to break the record? Just go to the paint. You can do it. You have the ability to do it. Jaylen Brown's at his best when he just puts his shoulder into a defender and goes. You had Karl Anthony Towns on 4 or 5 fouls? Hunt him on the floor. But no, Kyle Shanahan has to have Jimmy Garoppolo throw the ball deep in the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl up 2 scores because that's what the math says. That's what killed me.
Okay, so I would say that for me personally, I lean more towards math than your side of the street, but Joe Mazzulla takes it even a little bit further than I would like because, first of all, I think the biggest thing with Mazzulla is, I'm a big subscriber in football to you pass to score, you run to win, right? So you pass to get the lead, and once you get the lead, that's when possession and clock and all that kind of stuff starts to come into play, especially in the fourth quarter of games. Now, it's not
fourth quarter Super Bowl.
It's not exactly apples to apples with basketball and football. It's not the same sport where, like, in football, you could literally possess the ball for 10 straight minutes. Like, you can't do that in basketball. But it's similar in the sense that if you have a 20-point lead in the third quarter, like, you don't need to win by 40.
Right.
So just trade blows with them for the next 15 minutes and roll off into the sunset, and you're squeaky clean. You won the game.
Even if you're here's some math for you. You're up 20, right? Even if you're trading 3s for 2s.
Yeah.
What does that take? 11? No. That's going to take 21 baskets, 21 possessions.
Right.
For them to just tie the game.
And now, I think that in Joe's slight defense, I think the analytics people, the questions that they bring up are, okay, well, if, like, we just go into, like, the 4 corners offense, right? Like, and we just, eat clock and take the shot clock all the way down, and that's like throwing us off the rhythm of our typical game, right?
But it's not just, but they didn't, this is my point. They didn't have the rhythm. Like, it was clear they were cold, and this is what the math doesn't have. It's the human element of these guys don't have it tonight. They were a really good pick and roll team. The Knicks were sitting on the 3 for most of that game. Run a pick and roll, get a layup.
So now the bigger thing, though, for the Nerds is that they look at it over the course of a 7-game series.
Right.
So they say, what are the odds that we're going to shoot 27% from 3 over the course of 7 full games? It might happen to us once, like it did the other night, and we might lose a game. But the odds are more in our favor that 4 times out of 7 we're going to shoot it well enough to win the game.
Okay, but when you're up 20 and you've missed 5, 6, 7 in a row, isn't there something to be said for, I know it's a cliche, but it's talked about for a reason. You got to see one go in. Get to the rim, either draw fouls so you get free throws or get a layup. And I'm not saying they couldn't shoot another 3 for the rest of the night. Can't you just get one layup just to kind of flip the momentum?
Yeah, so I agree with you on more than you probably think, because I do agree with you that all these nerd coaches who I love, by the way, but
this is what I said. I think it was the open of the show the other week.
Yeah,
you love them until they do something that's dumb because of the math, and then you disown them.
All these nerd coaches are just allergic to the run to win aspect, right? Like, they're allergic to, we built the 20-point lead with 5 minutes to go in the third quarter. Now we don't need to build the lead anymore. We just need to maintain the lead, and that should change the way you play.
Adjustments. That's all I'm asking.
And they don't.
Asking for. And by the way, let me be clear. I still think the Celtics are going to win the title.
Yeah.
So this is more just
so that's the caveat for everybody, though. It's like, well, I still think they're going to win, but... Right?
But I'm sorry.
I still think they're going to win the game.
This is Boston. If I can't be annoyed blowing a 20-point lead to a team from New York, what even are we anymore?
Okay, so last thing on this, then we have to go. My bigger gripe with Joe Mazzulla in this game, because I refuse to get on the math thing. Like, I refuse to do it. So my biggest gripe on Joe Mazzulla in this game, I thought that his substitution patterns stunk. And I also thought that, his ATOs and end-of-game handling stunk as well. But the substitution patterns, I don't feel like this is being talked about a ton. So I thought Pritchard actually had it going a little bit in game 1. He had 12 points, I think, in 23 minutes. And then they can't buy a bucket in the fourth quarter. And they can't find a 2 or 3 minute stretch to see if Pritchard can provide a spark.
He's in the original plan. Can't make adjustments.
He's the 6th man of the year, right?
Yeah.
I'm not asking for him to close. I understand why you close with Holiday, White, the Jays, and Al Horford. That's your closing 5. I get it. But with 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and the Knicks now have tied the game, and you haven't scored a basket 5-on-5, not from the free throw line or whatever, in 10 minutes. Don't you think that the literal microwave off the bench that you have sitting there might come in and hit some threes?
You missed 7 in a row, so the math tells us that the number has to progress back to the mean. So just let these guys keep chucking, because eventually they'll hit one, because mentally it's not changing them at all, having missed all of these.
That bothered me. No Pritchard late bothered me.
Yeah.
I thought that he could provide a spark. And then the Hauser minutes were just out of nowhere and just terrible.
I think that I think Porzingis was supposed to play a big role in this series, and losing him threw everything off.
They lost Porzingis early.
No, you still have to be able to adjust. You still, but
as a bench player, and this is in any sport, but especially in basketball, Sam Hauser didn't play for the first half of the game. And then with 5 minutes to go in the third quarter, with the Knicks making a comeback, they just threw him into the game.
I think Porzingis was supposed to play more minutes, and then Cornette hasn't been playing well.
And
he was just the next guy.
Their whole rotation got messed up.
Right, should they have gone to Keita? Should they have gone to Xavier Tillman? But
Hauser's like a rhythm shooter. All of a sudden, he has a couple wide open threes that he bricks, right? He normally makes. If you had gotten him a little bit of run in the first half, then he's into the game. Yeah. He's had it those were big shots, wide open threes that he typically makes that were big shots in the game. And he was cold coming off the bench.
Everybody was cold, but they didn't adjust to being cold. That was story of the night. The thing that bothered me the most, that didn't relate to the math, although it kind of relates to the math.
Yeah.
They were doing a really good job running those foul totals up.
Yeah.
And again, they had Karl Anthony Towns, 4 or 5 fouls in the third quarter?
Very, very early on in the game.
They should have been hunting him more, and they didn't.
Yeah.
And some of that is because they wanted the threes, but get the switch. And to the Knicks' credit, they were good at playing off the switches and making sure Towns wasn't exposed, but take advantage of that. Get your mismatches, but get Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum on a Karl Anthony Towns on the switch. Go to the basket. he's either going to have to leave you alone and you get an easy layup, or he's going to foul you and you're going to take one of their best players out of the game.
All right. Well, thanks for humoring us with a little bit of Celtics talk, but there's definitely some parallels there with the Celtics conversation right now with the math and the nerds and your boy Felger yelling, "It's a human game!" Like, no kidding, Felger.
It is.
Felger, I understand. There's not CGI athletes running around.
These guys, it's mental. You miss so many shots in a row. It's mental. You have to.
We all get it. Thank you. We get it. They're humans. They're not robots.
Well, I liked our looks. Doesn't mean anything when guys are in their head about it.
Well, they normally make those shots. They didn't.
But they weren't.
Okay. Well,
It's
win tonight, it'll be because
element.
they will take the same shots they took on Monday night and they'll make them.
I hope they don't shoot a 3 for like 10 minutes tonight.
Well, that would worry me because then they're listening to you bozos too much at the sports hub over there. All right.
No, Joe's going to come out and have him shoot 23s in a row.
All right. Well, we'll be back next week. Hopefully, the Celtics will be in better shape than they are right now in terms of the series. But we'll be back next week. Rookie minicamp. Hopefully, this weekend we'll get a look in on that. So we'll talk about that. We'll do our roster reset on the defensive side of the ball. And as always, we'll take your calls and emails. So thanks very much for listening, for watching, for commenting, and we'll see you guys next week.
Hey, this is Fred. Thanks for tuning into the show. If you really want to help us, make sure that you like us wherever you get your podcasts, like Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And also, make sure you follow us on the New England Patriots YouTube page to see this show and everything else that we do here at the Patriots. Thanks a lot.